Chapter 460. House Yunyan was very lively today. Zhou Tong sent out invitations to all the geniuses from the various factions to welcome the young war emperor, Yang Haozong. Yang Haozong was one of the top geniuses from the three royal palaces, so he naturally had a good reputation. Moreover, Zhou Tong had invited the two geniuses from the three royal palaces. Zhou Tong set up a banquet on the top floor of House Yunyan and invited all the geniuses. Yang Haozong hadn't appeared yet, and Zhou Tong was receiving the guests. Many geniuses from various factions had already gathered here. Just then, a man and a woman came up from downstairs. They were Xian Feng and Xian Dai from the Wuji Sword sect. The Wuji Sword sect's black and white impermanents are here too. Someone was surprised. Thank you for coming. Is brother Xian Hao not here? Zhou Tong cupped his hands towards the two and said with a faint smile. Ignore him. We want to see how pathetic Yi Guqin will be when the merit points are counted. Xian Dai's tone was cold. During the exchange, they were defeated by Yi Guqin even though they had teamed up. This made them very unhappy. Then, people from the Xing Yuan Academy came. They were Princess Yuan Shi, Mo Langia, and Fang Chen. Then, people from the Consonance Palace also came. LV Qinghan, Zither Fairy, and Ren Tingting were among them. I'm really happy that you two could come. Zhou Tong smiled when he saw LV Qinghan and Zither Fairy. How can we not come when Lord Zhou invited us? Ren Tingting squeezed forward and said with a smile before LV Qinghan and Zither Fairy could say anything. Zither Fairy was also happy to see this. She and LV Qinghan found a corner and sat down. Zhou Tong had a smile on his face, but his heart was cold. Why did Ren Tingting keep interrupting and ruining his plans? Just then, people came. It was Shintu Miao from the Shintu family and Gongsun Xiaoye from the Gongsun family. Gongsun Xiaoye didn't want to come, but because of Gongsun Xuanlong's persuasion, she had no choice but to come. Damn it, stupid father. Gongsun Xiaoye gritted her teeth. The more she looked at the burly Shintu Miao beside her, the more annoyed she felt. The thought of marrying Shintu Miao in a few days made Gongsun Xiaoye want to die. However, in order for Gongsun Yu to break through to become a 5-star blacksmith, he had to obtain the letter. The only condition for obtaining the letter was that Gongsun Xiaoye and Shintu Miao had to be married. How despicable. Gongsun Xiaoye thought in her heart, but there was nothing she could do. As time passed, the gathering was about to begin. It seems like the Sword Sect, Pagoda Forest, Nine Profound Sect and Saber-Sealing Monarch Palace won't be coming. Zhou Tong said indifferently. Leng Zhu and the others didn't like to socialize, so they naturally wouldn't come. As for the Nine Profound Sect and the Sword Sect's Talon Forest, they naturally wouldn't come. At this moment, a series of thumping sounds came from the stairwell. Every step was incomparably heavy. The main character is here. Zhou Tong waved his fan. The person who walked up the stairwell was the young war emperor, Yang Haozong. He wore the 9 Serenities obsidian dragon armor at all times. It fit his muscular physique, his cold face, and his slightly pursed lips. No matter when or where he was, his supreme domineering aura was extremely eye-catching. Brother Yang. Many people went up and cupped their fists with smiles on their faces. It was obvious that people like the young war emperor were worth befriending. Yes, thank you for coming to the gathering. The young war emperor nodded slightly. I wonder how many saints Brother Yang has killed and how many saint tokens have you obtained? Someone asked curiously. In the beginning, there was news of the young war emperor killing a saint, but it didn't happen later on. Of course, no one would think that the young war emperor didn't obtain anything. It was obvious that the news didn't spread. Hearing this, the young war emperor said indifferently, you will know when the day comes to tally the contributions. Although he said that, the young war emperor couldn't hide the arrogance and confidence on his face. Everyone knew that the young war emperor was confident that he would win the bet. Hee, your question is too stupid. What kind of character is Brother Yang? How can a guy like Yi Guqin compare to him? At this time, an ear-piercing laughter sounded. The one who spoke was Ren Tingting. Indeed. Although Yi Guqin has some skills, he is arrogant and self-opinionated. Even if he was lucky enough to kill a saint, he is definitely not a match for Brother Yang. Princess Yuan she also said. During the exchange, one of them was knocked out by Yi Guqin and the other was stepped on by him. They were both in a sorry state and had a deep grudge against Yi Guqin. As soon as she said that, the atmosphere of the gathering instantly became cold. The young war emperor was indeed powerful. However, the combat strength that Yi Guqin displayed during the exchange wasn't weak either. If it wasn't for Yi Guqin's injuries, it would be hard to say who would win the bet. However, it was the young war emperor's gathering and no one dared to speak up for Yi Guqin. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded out. A group of losers who were defeated in a sorry state have the face to mock the victor. Don't you think this kind of behavior is the most stupid? The person who spoke was a beautiful woman in pink. She was Zither Fairy. Ren Tingting, Princess Yuan Shi, and the others were embarrassed and their faces turned pale. This was a shadow that they could never erase. Now that Zither Fairy mentioned it again, they were embarrassed and angry. Are you the one that junior brother Zhou admires? The young war emperor glanced at Zither Fairy. Senior brother, please don't laugh at me. Zhou Tong smiled bitterly and shook his head. Brother Yang, I am a little too straightforward. I hope you don't mind. LV Qinghan said lightly. Oh. It's okay. I won't care about this. I am just angry for junior brother Zhou. Junior brother Zhou is so outstanding but he is not valued. Instead, he cares about the self-opinionated and arrogant Yi Guqin. I am a little blind. The young war emperor said casually. Zither Fairy's face was cold. LV Qinghan also looked a little embarrassed. She could only say, I am sorry. Junior sister might not understand now. She will understand in the future. Yi Guqin is also outstanding, but he is not suitable for her. Young Master Yi is a golden fish in a pond. One day, he will turn into a dragon. He is not from the same world as you. Zither Fairy clenched her hands. Others might not know, but Zither Fairy was the clearest. In the Tianhuang Plain, Yi Guqin resisted the pressure and fought a life-and-death battle with Xia Yubing. In the end, he even had the courage to swing his sword at Gu Shaoyang, who was in the life-and-death chamber. In the Void Sword realm, Yi Guqin, who had lost all his Jun Qi, was not afraid of Xianhao's pressure and fought with him. In the end, he defeated hundreds of people with his sword. Such a person was destined to shock an era in the future. How could these so-called geniuses be compared to him? Zither Fairy looked around with her beautiful eyes. She felt that everyone present was like a frog at the bottom of a well. Just as the atmosphere was a little cold and desolate, a lot of noise came from outside House Yunyan. A disciple of the 3 imperial palaces hurried to the top floor of House Yunyan. Looking at the young war emperor Zhou Tong and the others, he said, Big news. Yi Guqin has returned to northern Liang City. I heard that he is seriously injured and is in a difficult situation. What? Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Yi Guqin of the Sword Sect was seriously injured. Gongsun Xiaoye and the others were in disbelief. They had seen Yi Guqin's strength with their own eyes. Even if he had not recovered from his injuries, he could not have been beaten so badly by the barbarian saint. Zither Fairy's face turned pale. She had just said that Yi Guqin was not an ordinary person and would become a dragon in the end. Now, there was news that Yi Guqin was seriously injured and returned to the city. It was a great irony. Many people looked at Zither Fairy with a playful look in their eyes. As for Ren Tingting, Princess Yuan Shi and the others, they did not hide the mockery on their faces. Let's go and take a look. The young war emperor did not mock them. He only smiled. He wanted to see how embarrassed Yi Guqin was. Chapter 461. At the entrance of northern Liang City, a large group of people had gathered. They surrounded the area and stared at the black-robed young man who was slowly walking out of the city gate. The young man's clothes were torn in many places. Although his wounds had temporarily healed, one could still see the bloody scars. His handsome face was also pale and bloodless. This young man was Yiguchen. Yiguchen was now a famous person in northern Liang City. His every move would attract the attention of countless people. Therefore, when Yiguchen appeared, a large group of people gathered around him. Feeling Yiguchen's extremely weak aura, many of the surrounding warriors were astonished. Not to mention the warriors, even ordinary people could see that Yiguchen was seriously injured in such a state. This made many people very surprised. One had to know that Yiguchen's performance in the exchange could be said to be stunning. No one doubted Yiguchen's strength. However, looking at Yiguchen, who was walking unsteadily, many of the surrounding people did not dare to believe it. Was this still the same sword sect master who had defeated his peers? Why was he in such a sorry state? What is going on? Someone was puzzled. What else could it be? He was just taught a lesson by the barbarian tribe's saint. Yiguchen was already severely injured after the exchange. He even made a bet with the young war emperor. Now, he is reaping what he sowed. Who can he blame? There were also some people who disliked Yiguchen and did not hesitate to mock him. The surrounding people's gazes were filled with surprise, pity, sympathy, coldness, and disdain. As for Yiguchen, he did not care at all. He only wanted to return to the inn to recuperate. At this moment, a cry of surprise came from afar. The young war emperor and the others are here. Hearing this, Yiguchen's expression did not change as he looked into the distance. The dense crowd parted like a tide and a group of people walked over. They were all the geniuses who had gathered in House Yunyan. The person leading the group was the young war emperor. The young war emperor's gaze immediately focused on Yiguchen. Currently, the two main characters of the bet that had attracted the interest of countless people in northern Liang City were actually present. This caused countless onlookers to be extremely curious. However, the difference between the two of them was simply too great. The little war emperor was high-spirited. He walked with a majestic gait and had an imposing appearance. As for Yiguchen, he was covered in wounds. His aura was weak and his face was pale. Who was better and who was worse, it was obvious at a glance. It seems that there is no suspense in this battle. Many people sighed in their hearts. Yiguchen, what happened to you? The young war emperor looked at Yiguchen and asked with a faint smile. Yiguchen did not reply. He did not want to deal with this group of people at all. However, a beautiful figure in pink flashed out from the crowd and directly landed in front of Yiguchen. Her tone carried anxiety and concern as she asked, "Young Master Yi, why are you so heavily injured?" Looking at Zither Fairy's anxious expression, Yiguchen felt a slight warmth in his heart. It was not bad to have such a friend. It's nothing. It's just a small injury. Sorry for making you worry. Yiguchen said with a faint smile. Zither Fairy bit her lips. She was still worried. Not far away, Zhou Tong saw this and his expression changed slightly. However, he recovered in an instant and said, "Young Master Yi, why are you so heavily injured?" "Sigh, you cannot underestimate the barbarian saint." Zhou Tong seemed to be taking care of Yiguchen. However, he was actually mocking Yiguchen for being frivolous and arrogant. Yiguchen coldly glanced at Zhou Tong. At this moment, he was more and more certain that the person who was monitoring him was most likely sent by Zhou Tong. Oh, the famous sword sect has also fallen to such a state. Just now in House Yunyan, Zither Fairy was praising you without restraint. She said that you are a golden fish that is not a fish in a pond. Once you encounter the wind and clouds, you will become a dragon. But why is it that what I see now is a pitiful bug? An extremely harsh voice sounded. It was Rintingting. Her jade-like face was full of sarcasm and her words were merciless. Yiguchen's current state could be said to be a slap to Zither Fairy's face. Zither Fairy bit her lips and remained silent. Compared to her own embarrassment, Zither Fairy was more concerned about Yiguchen's injuries. Seeing Zither Fairy's lowered head, Rentingting felt very happy. Princess Yuan she also stepped forward and said coldly, Yiguchen, you were so arrogant at the exchange meet. Now it seems that you only know how to fight among yourselves. You were seriously injured when facing the barbarian saint. You are a disgrace to the 7 major forces. As the two of them spoke, some of the geniuses who had been defeated by Yiguchen at the exchange meet also stepped forward and coldly reprimanded Yiguchen for his arrogance. Even though he was injured, he still dared to make a bet with the young war emperor and ended up in such a sorry state. Not to mention these geniuses, even some of the bystanders felt that Yiguchen had suffered the consequences of his own actions. You! Zither Fairy clenched her jade-like hands. She felt indignant for Yiguchen. However, she also could not deny that Yiguchen was indeed seriously injured. Forget it, it's just a bunch of noisy flies. Yiguchen patted Zither Fairy's shoulder. Yiguchen really did not care about these losers. He could not be bothered to explain anything. Even if he did, with the resentment and prejudice these people had against him, would they believe him? Instead, they would mock Yiguchen even more for his arrogant words. Yiguchen did not bother to explain to them. Anyway, when the merit points were counted, all the truth would be revealed. Yiguchen turned and walked towards the inn where the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was located. Zither Fairy was about to follow, but LV Qinghan stepped forward. Junior sister, the gathering is not over yet. Are you leaving already? LV Qinghan glanced at Yiguchen and then looked at Zither Fairy. She did not mock and ridicule Yiguchen, but she did not look too good either. Because LV Qinghan also felt that Yiguchen's current injuries were due to his arrogance. He had not recovered from his injuries, but he had made a rash remark and ended up in such a sorry state. LV Qinghan really did not like this kind of obstinate and self-opinionated person. Sorry, senior sister, the gathering is over. Zither Fairy shook her head slightly and supported Yiguchen's arm. Sigh, you. LV Qinghan sighed and did not force him. She was just a little disappointed in Yiguchen. He did not know his own limits and would only drag Zither Fairy down. Yiguchen did not explain anything and slowly left with Zither Fairy's support. His back view was somewhat desolate. On the other hand, the young war emperor was surrounded by a large group of flattering geniuses. Let's go back to House Yunyan. Don't let others ruin our mood. Zhou Tong said with a smile. The coldness in his heart towards Yiguchen deepened. A group of people escorted the young war emperor back to House Yunyan to celebrate. The contrast between the two was so huge that it even gave the people of northern Liang City the illusion that the young war emperor was already the winner of the bet. After Yiguchen returned to the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest, it also caused a commotion. Yan Wushuang, Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, and the others all came to visit. Yiguchen also did not explain anything to them. After all, in less than 2 days, it would be the day of counting the contribution points. Yiguchen was recuperating by himself. He guessed that someone would come soon. As expected, in less than a day, an inner court disciple sent a message that someone was looking for Yiguchen. Yiguchen came to a secluded area outside the inn. He saw the dragon lady who was wearing a hood, revealing only her delicate face. When I heard the news that you returned to the city, I immediately rushed over. You actually escaped from Shuel Yishan's men? Long Nu looked at Yiguchen with a surprised expression. She naturally did not think that Yiguchen was able to kill Shuel Yishan. She only thought that Yiguchen escaped with serious injuries. Yiguchen did not explain anything and said indifferently, your injuries have not healed yet, right? I will ask someone to find a place that provides spirit energy for you to recuperate. Many thanks. Long Nu nodded slightly. Yiguchen naturally did not do this out of kindness. In the future, if he infiltrated the barbarian race, Long Nu would definitely provide him with great help. In 2 days, I will go and take a look at your bet. Long Nu blinked her eyes and said with a charming smile. Others did not know about Yiguchen's harvest, but she knew that Yiguchen obtained 10 saint tokens. This was definitely a number that would shock everyone. Yiguchen nodded indifferently. However, his harvest still far exceeded Long Nu's imagination. Chapter 462. 2 days had passed since Yiguchen returned to the city. It was the day of counting the merit points. Every time the 7 factions fought with the barbarian race, they would have a 1-month period to rest and recuperate. Those geniuses who fought with the barbarian race could rely on tokens such as warrior tokens and saint tokens to count their merit points and exchange them for some rewards. These rewards were jointly funded by the 7 factions. There were martial arts, cultivation methods, divine weapons, elixirs, and so on. There were even rarer divine items of the 5 elements. However, the amount of merit points needed to exchange for those divine items was huge. The place where the merit points were counted was still the arena where the exchange was held. On this day, the 7 great forces once again gathered at the martial arts arena. On the sword sect's side, Yiguchen and the others were also led by Feng Manlu to the arena. Yiguchen's injuries had not fully recovered, but at least they would not hinder his movements. Yan Wushuang and the others looked at Yiguchen with worry. Yiguchen went into seclusion to recuperate as soon as he returned to the inn, so they did not know how many saint tokens Yiguchen had obtained. They were worried that Yiguchen would lose the bet. Why do you have to be so stubborn? Don't you care about your body at all? Yan Wushuang muttered. Yiguchen's expression was indifferent and he did not refute anything. Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, and the others looked at Yan Wushuang playfully. Why did her tone sound so much like a wife complaining about her husband? Why are you looking at me? Yan Wushuang's delicate face flushed with a faint blush. Nothing. Chu Qingqi and Yi Xia looked to the side. In the entire Sword Sect's pagoda forest, apart from Yan Changge and Feng Manlu, only Yiguchen could receive such treatment from Yan Wushuang. Let's see how you'll pretend when you lose the bet. Bai Zichen stared coldly at Yiguchen from the back. Yiguchen also noticed Bai Zichen from the corner of his eye. Although Bai Zichen tried his best to hide it, his legs were still a little unnatural when he walked. Perhaps most people wouldn't care about it and wouldn't notice it. However, Yiguchen was very attentive and noticed it. He recalled that when he was in Black Rock City, the mysterious person who was spying on him had his leg grazed by the sword light. Now, Bai Zichen's legs were also having problems at the same time. Was this a coincidence? Yiguchen disagreed. Bai Zichen, if it's really you. Yiguchen's eyes turned cold. He had never cared about Bai Zichen, but if Bai Zichen was being used by Zhou Tong, Yiguchen would not mind taking action to eliminate this hidden danger. He was not a kind person. Not long after, the people from the 7 major forces had all gathered in the fighting arena. In the fighting arena, there was a hubbub of voices. Other than the people from the 7 major forces, there were also many warriors from northern Liang City gathered here. Obviously, they were all attracted by the bet between Yiguchen and the Little War Emperor. The moment Yiguchen and the others entered the arena, they instantly felt countless gazes on them. There were all sorts of meanings in the gazes. Sword Sect Yi is here. Looking at his appearance, it seems that his injuries have not recovered yet. Sigh, the Sword Sect is a little miserable this time. I really don't know which barbarian saint they met. Could it be in existence at the level of the double champion? What? Yiguchen's injuries have not recovered yet. He forced himself to make a bet. Now he's lost face. With the arrival of Yiguchen, all kinds of discussions were in an uproar. Some were pitiful, some were watching a show, some were mocking, and so on. Yiguchen's temperament had long been as calm as water, and he did not care about the evaluation of the outside world. He looked around and found that the dragon lady had indeed come. She hid in the crowd and smiled sweetly at him. The Gongsun family and Shintu family were also here. Gongsun Xiaoye, Gongsun Xianlong, Shintu Zhan, Shintu Miao, and Shintu Yuan were all here. The Shinto family did not have a good impression of Yiguchen, because Shinto Miao had a grudge with Yiguchen. On the other hand, Gongsun Xiaoya looked at Yiguchen with pity and shook her head. Sigh, the sword sect is really pitiful. If he was in his peak condition, he might not lose to the little war emperor. Gongsun Xiaoya sighed. She was a budding young girl who worshipped the strong. In the previous exchange, Yiguchen had swept through all 4 directions. It could be said that he was peerless in his generation. She was not willing to see Yiguchen being crushed by the little war emperor. You're worrying too much. The sword sect has nothing to do with you. You should settle down and prepare to be a bride. Gongsun Xianlong said with a headache. I'd rather marry that stinking brat called Chen than marry Shinto Miao. Gongsun Xiaoya mumbled. Don't think too much. That young man probably left northern Liang City long ago. Gongsun Xianlong sighed. If the Shinto family did not have that letter, Gongsun Xianlong might really consider Chen. After all, even he was amazed by Chen's talent in forging. As time passed, the people from the 7 major forces arrived one after another. The people from the 3 imperial palaces are here. Someone exclaimed. Yiguchen looked over. The people from the 3 imperial palaces were led by the flaming emperor, with the little war emperor and Zhou Tong at his sides. Everyone from the 3 royal palaces was in high spirits, walking with a majestic gait. Especially the flaming emperor, who was very happy. In the previous exchange, the 3 imperial palaces were extremely sullen. As a divine dwelling realm expert, he had nowhere to vent his anger. But now, the little war emperor had finally fought for the 3 imperial palaces. How could he not be happy? Feng Manlu, how much did the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest obtain this time? The flaming emperor looked at Feng Manlu, unable to hide his pride. You'll know when the time comes. Feng Manlu was very calm. Even if the outside world said that Yiguchen was severely injured and did not obtain any rewards, he did not care. Because Feng Manlu believed in Yiguchen. After that, the people from the other major forces arrived. When the Limitless Sword Sect arrived, Xian Hao also appeared. His gaze briefly met with Yiguchen before he retracted his gaze. Compared to before, Xian Hao was more reserved, deep, and his heart was as still as water. Yiguchen's eyes were deep. Xian Hao did not feel dejected because of the loss. Instead, he became even more unfathomable. He would definitely be a strong opponent in the future. When the Consonance Divine Palace and Saint Origin Academy appeared, Ren Tingting and Princess Yuan Shi still could not control their mouths. They mocked and ridiculed Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest and Yiguchen. This made the disciples of Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest extremely sullen and angry, but there was nothing they could do. After all, what Ren Tingting and the others said was the truth. These inner disciples could not refute. Alright, since the people from the major forces have arrived, let's officially start the counting. An old man in the life and death chamber stood out and said loudly. 1 warrior's token, 10 merit points. 1 saint's token or saintess token, 100 merit points. As for the elder's token and the sacrificial token. The old man paused for a moment. The 7 major forces and the barbarian race's upper echelons had yet to fight. It was the 7 major forces' sky prides fighting against the barbarian race's saints and saintesses. Therefore, no one should be able to obtain the elder's token or the sacrificial token. However, the old man still said, although you may not be able to obtain it, I still have to say that if anyone can obtain the elder's token or the sacrificial token, they will be rewarded with 1,000 merit points. Hearing the old man's words, many sky pride's eyes lit up, but they soon shook their heads inwardly. 1,000 merit points was indeed very high. It was equivalent to 10 saints' tokens. However, among the sky prides of the 7 major forces, even the top sky prides, who had the ability to kill a life and death chamber. Senior, you don't have to say any more. I don't think anyone will be able to obtain the elder's token, Princess Yuan Shi said, shaking her head. I don't think so either, Ren Tingting said. Many sky prides nodded in agreement. Chapter 463. It wasn't easy to challenge someone with a higher cultivation level. Perhaps there were some peerless geniuses in the South Horizon region who could do it. However, it was hard to find someone like that in the Saint Origin dynasty. Even the young war emperor, Xian Hao, and the others couldn't guarantee that they could challenge someone with a higher cultivation level than them. Not to mention killing them. Therefore, almost all the geniuses present felt that there was no need to mention the elder's token. The old man shook his head with a smile. He had indeed made an unnecessary move. Then let's start counting. The old man said. The 7 major forces followed the order. There were also people who specialized in verifying the authenticity of the tokens. However, almost no one would take out a fake token in such a situation. The consequences would be severe. Not only would they be disqualified from obtaining merits, but they would also bring shame to their own forces. Chen Yi, Bai Yanji, and the others from the 9 Profound sect walked out and started counting their gains. They took out many warriors' tokens. The warrior's token was the token that totem warriors carried with them. However, only the captain-level totem warriors were qualified to possess it. Therefore, the warrior's token had a certain value. However, they didn't take out a single saint's token. Although Yi Gu Chen, the young battle emperor, and the others had casually said that they could kill the saint of the barbarian tribe, it was extremely difficult for ordinary geniuses to kill the saint of the barbarian tribe. Not everyone could accomplish this. Because of this, many people thought that Yi Gu Chen was arrogant and conceited. Then, it was the titled Saber Monarch Palace's turn. The strongest genius of the titled Saber Monarch Palace, Gu Zun, still didn't come. However, no one doubted that if Gu Zun was here, he would have obtained a lot of saints' tokens. Leng Ju took out 2 saints' tokens, causing a commotion. This was already considered a good harvest. As for Nia Ling and Mo Juechen, they didn't take out their saints' tokens. Although their cultivation wasn't weak, they weren't strong enough to kill a saint. Then, it was the Saint Origin Academy's turn. Princess Yuan Shi, Mo Langia, and Fang Chen walked out. They also took out many warriors' tokens. What was more surprising was that Princess Yuan Shi took out 3 saints' tokens at the same time. This caused a huge commotion. Princess Yuan Shi's strength wasn't weak. She also had the cultivation of the Divine Soul 9th transformation. However, would she be able to kill 3 holy disciples in a short span of a month? No one thought that the saint's token was fake. Many people looked at Mo Langia and Fang Chen. The 3 of them had probably killed Queen Yuan Shi's saint token together. However, since Mo Langia and Fang Chen had no objections, it was not considered a violation of the rules. With a proud smile on her face, Princess Yuan Shi sneered at Yi Gu Chen and said, "Yi Gu Chen, your harvest can't be less than mine, right?" Many people in the arena had strange expressions when they heard this. It seemed that Princess Yuan Shi was trying to rub salt into Yi Gu Chen's wound. Yi Gu Chen didn't even look at Queen Yuan Shi. He was resting with his eyes closed. You. Queen Yuan Shi's face turned purple. She was the princess of a dynasty and had never been ignored like this. Humph, you're so stubborn. I'd like to see your expression when it's your turn. Princess Yuan Shi snorted. Then, LV Qinghan and the others from Lingxi Palace walked out. Zither Fairy and Ren Tingting only took out their warrior tokens. LV Qinghan took out 4 saint tokens, which caused an uproar in the arena again. Unlike Princess Yuan Shi, who had worked together to kill the holy disciples, LV Qinghan had killed them all by herself. Many people looked at LV Qinghan with admiration. LV Qinghan's expression remained calm. Zither Fairy didn't care about her harvest. She just looked at Yi Gu Chen worriedly. Ha, Zither Fairy, I still remember you saying that Yi Gu Chen is the golden fish in the pool and will become a dragon one day. I'm looking forward to it, Ren Tingting said to Zither Fairy. Her words were full of sarcasm. Zither Fairy's face was slightly pale. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Then, Xian Hao and the others from the Wuji Sword sect walked out. Black and white impermanence took out 3 saint tokens. But unexpectedly, Xian Hao actually took out 5 Holy Sun tokens. Like Yiguchen, he was seriously injured at the exchange. To be able to obtain 5 saint tokens with an injured body, it was clear that Xian Hao's strength was still at the top. Xian Hao looked at Yiguchen calmly and said, "Yiguchen, the exchange is not the end of our battle. In the future, you will definitely be defeated by my sword. I'll be waiting." Yiguchen only spat out 3 words. Looking at the 2 people who were at each other's throats, many spectators sighed. Although Xian Hao had lost to Yiguchen once, he was braver as the battle went on. His strength had definitely reached a new level. As the limitless sword sect finished counting, the entire martial arena fell into a short period of silence. There were only 2 forces left that had not counted their merits. 3 imperial palaces, sword sect forest. Sensing the sudden silence in the atmosphere, everyone was well aware of what had happened. A month ago, the bet made by the 2 top heavens prides at the exchange was going to be fulfilled today. However, the outcome seemed to be clear. You first. On 3 imperial palaces side, the young war emperor raised his eyebrows and looked at Yiguchen. You first. Yiguchen placed his hands behind his back and was very calm. This made many people look at him strangely. Everyone knew that Yiguchen was seriously injured and had returned in a sorry state. Did he really gain something, or was he just putting on an act? The young war emperor did not mind and smiled as if he was extremely confident in himself. Seeing the young war emperor going forward, everyone in the arena stared at him without blinking. They really wanted to know how much this heaven's favorite with unparalleled battling capabilities had gained. The young war emperor wiped his origin ring and a saint token fell out. 1 token. Many people looked at him strangely. Based on the news, the young war emperor had gained more than 1 token. Then, the young war emperor's origin ring flashed again. The 2nd saint token fell with a crisp sound. Then, the 3rd token. The 4th token. Every time a saint token fell, the crisp sound was like a heavy hammer that fiercely pounded on everyone's heart. Now, they finally understood. The young war emperor was secretly pressuring Yiguchen. He wanted to torture Yiguchen's mind bit by bit and crush his confidence. In the end, 8 saint tokens fell to the ground. The entire arena was suffocated by the young war emperor's aura. These 8 holy sun tokens represented 8 holy suns. All the onlookers secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Even Xian Hao, LV Qinghan, and the others had a serious expression. The young war emperor's strength was indeed powerful. The young war emperor's face was cold and arrogant. He turned to look at Yiguchen and said indifferently, "I didn't gain much, only 8 tokens." Only 8 tokens? Many heavens prides smiled bitterly when they heard this. The young war emperor's words were too hurtful. If he didn't gain much, then what were these heavens prides who didn't even have a saint token? Looking at the young war emperor's oppressive gaze, Yiguchen nodded and said, "Yes, I didn't gain much." The young war emperor's face froze. The rest of the people also revealed looks of surprise. Could it be that this Yiguchen took the young war emperor's humble words seriously? Ignoring the gazes of others, Yiguchen walked forward step by step. His injuries hadn't healed yet. His face was pale and his steps were a little weak. However, when he stood still, there was still a towering aura, like a sword that could pierce the heavens. Yiguchen also stretched out his hand. A saint token fell to the ground. Many people were surprised. Was Yiguchen trying to imitate the young war emperor? However, did he have that many saint tokens? Clang! The 2nd saint token fell. Clang! The 3rd token fell. Some heavens pride's eyes twitched. Then, the 4th token fell. Ling Ju and the others were stunned. Then, the 5th token fell. Many people's faces changed. This had exceeded their expectations. When the 7th saint token fell, Queen Yuan Shi and Ren Tingting's faces became extremely ugly. When the 8th saint token fell, even the young war emperor's face froze. Finally, when the 10th saint token fell, the saint token fell. All the noise in the entire martial arena disappeared. Only the sound of rapid and incredulous gasps could be heard in the surroundings. When the 10th saint token fell, everyone was shocked. Chapter 464. Everyone was dead silent as they stared at the 10 saint tokens on the ground. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the chosen's medallions as if they were nailed to the ground. 10 of them. This was an absolutely shocking number. Even for the top prodigies, it was almost impossible to kill 10 saints in a short span of a month. Yi Gu-chen, on the other hand, only had half a month's time to recuperate. The young war emperor's cold and arrogant face suddenly changed. He stared fixedly at the 10 saint tokens with a grave expression. Zhou Tong's face also showed a trace of astonishment. For the first time, Yi Gu-chen had exceeded his expectations. Queen Yuanxi's delicate body trembled slightly, and her eyes were a little dazed. She seemed to be in a state of extreme shock and had yet to recover from her shock. She, Mo Lengia, Fang Chen, and the others had gone to great lengths to secure the 3 saint medallions she had obtained. That was why she knew how hard it was to get the saint tokens. She thought that Yi Gu-chen should not be able to get them with his severely injured body. But now, the 10 saint tokens were like a heavy punch to Queen Yuanxi's heart. She looked extremely embarrassed. Over at Consonant's palace, LV Qinghan also lost her composure. Zither Fairy covered her red lips with her jade-like hand, tears of excitement welled up in her beautiful eyes. She was right. Even if Yi Gu-chen was severely injured, he had completely defeated the young war emperor. Zither Fairy turned to look at Ren Tingting. Ren Tingting had no qualms about mocking Yi Gu-chen before. At this moment, her face was completely pale and her lips were trembling. In front of the 10 saint tokens, any mocking words were pale and powerless. Ren Tingting's lips quivered. She wanted to say something, but she could not open her mouth. Ren Tingting, who is the frog at the bottom of the well? Zither Fairy said coldly. She had been mocked by Ren Tingting when she praised Yi Gu-chen. And now, the one who was in the most awkward position was Ren Tingting. Ren Tingting bit her lips, her face alternating between green and white. At this moment, Yi Gu-chen stood with his hands behind his back. Although his face was still pale from his serious injuries, no one dared to look down on him anymore. Especially those who had previously doubted Yi Gu-chen, they felt their cheeks burn. The 10 saint tokens were like 10 slaps to their faces. Some people lowered their heads in shame. The sword sect is so powerful. Gongsun Xiaoye cried out loudly, and her eyes were wide open. Gongsun Xianlong sighed. Who would have thought that the bet that everyone thought was already set in stone would end up like this? The countless martial artists in the spectator stands of the martial arts arena shouted out the name of the sword sect. Dragon Lady was hidden in the crowd, watching this scene with a smile. She already knew that Yi Gu-chen had obtained 10 saint tokens, so she wasn't surprised at all. In another corner of the crowd, there was an extremely ordinary-looking middle-aged man. His expression was extremely cold and stern, and his tightly clenched fists were trembling. Yi Gu-chen, it's actually you. But, with Big Brother's cultivation at the life and death realm, how could he die in his hands? I don't believe it. The middle-aged man muttered in his heart. He was none other than Xue Wuhuan, the elder of the Blood Barbarian tribe sent by the Blood Barbarian tribe. He was also the younger brother of Xue Lizhan. At this moment, looking at the 10 dazzling saint tokens, Xue Wuhuan's heart was filled with cold killing intent. He had already decided to kill Yi Gu-chen. When Yi Gu-chen took out the 10 saint tokens, the entire martial arts arena fell into an uproar for a long time. Even the elder hosting the martial arts arena was a little stunned. Yi Gu-chen's battle record was really outstanding. As expected of senior brother Yi. We've won this bet. Many of the inner domain disciples were excited. On the surface, This bet was between Yiguchen and the young war emperor. But wasn't it also a competition between the sword sect pagoda forest and the 3 imperial palaces? The smile on the flame emperor's face had already disappeared. He originally thought that the young war emperor would be able to suppress Yiguchen, but who would have thought that it would end up like this? Just when everyone thought that the bet was settled, Zhou Tong's eyes flashed. Zhou Tong's eyes flickered as he stepped forward. As expected of Sword Master Yi, 10 Holy Sun tokens have shocked everyone. However, these Holy Sun tokens are all Holy Sons of the Blood Barbarian tribe, right? Zhou Tong's words caused the entire martial arts arena to quiet down. What did he mean by saying that? Yiguchen's eyes were deep as he looked at Zhou Tong. Zhou Tong shook his head slightly. Although I admire Sword Sect Yi very much, the Blood Barbarian tribe is a second-tier barbarian tribe after all. The strength of the saints is limited. Senior brother Yang only has 8 saint tokens, but 3 of them are from the Wind tribe, the Wood tribe, and the Earth tribe. Those are the real barbarian tribes. So what do you mean? Yiguchen said with a calm expression. That's why I think that the number of Holy Sun tokens isn't enough to determine the outcome, but also the quality. Senior brother Yang has 3 Holy Sun tokens, and all of them are from first-tier tribes. Brother Yi, your tokens are all from second-tier blood barbarian tribes. You should be able to judge which one is better. Zhou Tong's words immediately caused many disciples of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest to curse. I've never seen such a shameless person. That's right. The young war emperor also agreed at the beginning that the winner would be determined by the number of tokens, but now he's doing this again. Shameless. The disciples of the inner yard were furious. Even Yan Wushuang, Chu Qingqi, and the others showed disdain. They had never seen such a sophistry person like Zhou Tong. Many people in the arena were surprised. Although some of them thought that Zhou Tong was twisting words and forcing logic. But when they thought about it carefully, it seemed to make some sense. There was a difference in strength between the saints. The saints of the major tribes were indeed stronger than those of the second-tier tribes. The corner of the young war emperor's mouth curved into a cold smile. Zhou Tong was the best at sophistry. With him here, it would be difficult for the young war emperor to lose today. There were many discussions in the arena. The outcome of the battle, which was originally without any suspense, was swaying again. Yiguchen faced all of this indifferently. He said indifferently, "So how do you think this bet should be settled?" "I think it's unfair to judge who wins now. Otherwise, it will be settled as a draw," Zhou Tong said. He also knew in his heart that it was impossible for Yiguchen to admit defeat. Since that was the case, he would take a step back and settle it as a draw. In any case, the young war emperor was supposed to lose. In this way, it would be Yiguchen who suffered a great loss. Hearing Zhou Tong's words, some people nodded. It seemed that this was the only way. "Ha, Zhou Tong, good plan. But unfortunately, all tricks are useless in the face of strength." Yiguchen shook his head and smiled indifferently. Seeing Yiguchen's calm expression, Zhou Tong frowned. But he couldn't think of how Yiguchen could turn the tables. Could it be that he would take out another saint token? Even if that was the case, Zhou Tong was confident that the outcome wouldn't change. Seeing Zhou Tong's expression, Yiguchen smiled coldly. He wiped his origin ring. A blood-like token appeared in front of everyone once again. Zhou Tong didn't even look at it and said, "Sword Sect Yi, it's useless even if you take out another saint token. This isn't something that can be decided by quantity," but Yiguchen looked at Zhou Tong indifferently and didn't say a word. Zhou Tong stopped talking. His eyes were filled with suspicion as he looked at the token. Instantly, his expression froze. He wasn't the only one. When everyone saw the blood-red token, they were all stunned. The old man who presided over the battle cried out involuntarily as if he had seen a ghost. "This is the barbarian tribe's elder token." Chapter 465. Only the elders of the Berserker tribe could possess the tribe elder token. And to be able to hold the position of clan elder, one had to be at least a life and death chamber expert. It was because of this that the elder had said that no one would be able to obtain the clan elder's token. The higher-ups had yet to make a move, and at most, only the top geniuses would be sent out. No matter how talented a top heaven's pride was, how could they be a match for a life and death chamber expert before they matured? However, at this moment, the blood-red token in Yiguchin's hand was, without a doubt, the clan elder's token. Impossible. Zhou Tong was the first to speak, his tone unable to conceal his loss of self-control. A divine soul realm expert killing a life and death threshold expert. What a joke. Even if this were to be spread out, not many people would believe it. They would think it was nonsense. Not to mention Zhou Tong, even the group of people from the Sword Sect's Tower Forest were stunned. They didn't dare to believe it. Yiguchin killed a life and death chamber warrior. Yan Wushuang's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of astonishment. Given her cold and indifferent personality, the fact that she could show such an expression showed how shocked she was. Chu Qingqi, Yiguchin, and the others were also momentarily stunned. Even though they really wanted Yiguchin to win, they didn't want Yiguchin to lose. However, this clan elder's medallion was simply too fantastical. None of them dared to believe it. Even the Sword Sect's Talon was like this, so one could imagine the attitude of the others. It's definitely fake. Yiguchin is only at the 6th transformation of Divine Soul Realm. How could he kill a life and death hidden latch? Princess Yuan, she screamed in disbelief. If Yiguchin could really kill life and death entrances, then wouldn't it be impossible for her to defeat Yiguchin in the future? Ren Tingting also felt the same and said, Yiguchin, you actually forged a clan elder's token for the sake of victory. Isn't that a little too exaggerated? The entire martial arena was in an uproar, and the clamor was like a surging tide. Most of them did not believe that it was Yiguchin who had killed an elder. After all, it was too difficult for a Divine Soul Realm warrior to kill a life and death chamber warrior. Not many people could do it. But in the crowd, Dragoness revealed a look of extreme shock. She stared at Yiguchin in a daze. Other people might have doubts, but she was someone who had personally experienced it. Yiguchin killed Xue Lizhan. Dragon Girl's beautiful blue eyes trembled as she covered her jade lips. She originally thought that Yiguchin had only barely escaped with his life from Xue Lizhan's hands. However, from the looks of it now, it wasn't that Yiguchin had escaped, but that he had completely killed Xue Lizhan. What kind of monster did I meet? Dragon Lady was absent-minded. On the other side, there was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man, who was disguised as Xue Wuhuan. When he saw Fierce Blood Mountain's clan elder Ling, an extreme killing intent could not help but burst out from the bottom of his heart. Big brother, you really did kill him. Xue Wuhuan had a violent personality. He couldn't bear it. His eyes were ferocious. He suddenly stood up and quietly moved towards Yiguchin. He couldn't bear it for a moment. He wanted to kill Yiguchin. He had the unique poison of the blood barbarian tribe in his body. He was confident that he could kill Yiguchin. As for his own life, as long as he could kill Yiguchin, this hidden danger, and avenge Fierce Blood Mountain and the Saints, he didn't care about his own life. At this moment, almost everyone's eyes were focused on the clan elder Ling. Therefore, not many people noticed Xue Wuhuan. Due to many people's doubts, the old man asked, Yiguchin, can you let me have a closer look at the clan elder Ling? Sure. Yiguchin handed the clan elder Ling to the old man. After the old man repeatedly checked it, he looked at Yiguchin in surprise and sighed, it is indeed the real clan elder Ling. Yiguchin, did you really kill this clan elder? Yiguchin nodded slightly. At this point, there was no need for him to hide anything. Killing someone of a higher cultivation level may be rare in the Saint Origin Empire, but in the South Horizon region, many peerless heaven prides of the major forces could do it. It could only be said that these people were too short-sighted. I don't believe it. Even if this clan elder's order is real, it could have been picked up by Yiguchin. Or he could have picked it up after someone killed him, Ren Tingting argued. Many people who had a grudge against Yi Guchen absolutely didn't believe it. Yi Guchen's brows furrowed. The atmosphere fell into a stalemate. At this moment, the ordinary middle-aged man that Xue Wuhuan had disguised himself as had quietly circled behind Yi Guchen. Because the people of the 7 great forces were mixed in the crowd, not many people noticed him. What's more, Xue Wuhuan was an expert in disguise. Even experts of the divine dwelling stage couldn't tell if he was real or fake without careful inspection. Yi Guchen, die. Xue Wuhuan snorted coldly and immediately attacked. His cultivation was also at the life and death threshold, and no one had time to react when he suddenly attacked. Xue Wuhuan's palm blasted out, accompanied by a black-red poisonous mist, towards Yi Guchen. This sudden action caused everyone to be unable to react in time. Even Feng Manlu was a little hesitant. Not good. Yi Guchen's spirit perception range was very wide, and he immediately felt an extremely strong killing intent. His figure flashed to the side, narrowly avoiding Xue Wuhuan's palm, but the black-red poisonous mist had infected Yi Guchen's body. How dare you! At the same time, the elders of the 7 great forces all roared. Feng Manlu's imposing manner suddenly erupted. His figure dashed forward, and he grabbed Xue Wuhuan's neck with one hand. At this moment, Yi Guchen felt that the black and red poisonous fog was spreading along his tendons and veins like gangrene. Wherever it passed, his vital energy and blood were corroded. Yi Guchen secretly suppressed the poison with the flawless Vajra body, the heavenly sun mysterious fire, the purple void mysterious lightning and other powers. But on the surface, his face was even paler, and his body seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Yan Wushuang, Zither Fairy, and the others hurriedly came forward to support Yi Guchen's body. Ha, Yi Guchen, you killed the 10 great chosen of my blood barbarian race, and even killed my big brother Xue Lizhan. Today you have been poisoned by the blood-dissolving demon poison, and if you can't resolve it, your body will definitely rot and die in the future. Even with Feng Manlu clutching his neck, Xue Wuhuan's face was still sinister. What? The first thing that everyone paid attention to wasn't the blood-dissolving demon poison, but that Yi Guchen had personally killed Xue Lizhan. This was something that the true elders of the blood barbarian race had said. At this moment, no one dared to question Yi Guchen's words. Ren Tingting and the others' faces were pale, and their bodies were trembling. No matter how unreasonable they were, they couldn't refute at this moment. No wonder Yi Jianzong was so heavily injured when he returned to the city. It turns out that he had fought with a life and death chamber expert. Yeah, and we even said that Yi Jianzong was injured by the barbarian race's chosen. If it were us, we wouldn't even be able to escape from a life and death chamber expert. At this moment, many people suddenly realized why Yi Guchen was in such a sorry state when he returned to the city that day. The young war emperor's face was extremely gloomy. Thinking back to that day, a group of heaven's chosen from House Yunyan mocked Yi Guchen for overestimating himself. In the end, he was injured because he had fought with a life and death chamber expert. Thinking of this, the young war emperor, Zhou Tong, Ren Tingting, Princess Yuan Shi, and even LV Qinghan felt a little embarrassed, and couldn't say anything for a while. Blood barbarian race, you've gone too far. Feng Manlu's tone was cold. He exerted some force in his palm, and with a cracking sound, Xue Wuhuan died. Feng Manlu didn't like to kill, but it depended on the situation. The blood barbarian race had already crossed Feng Manlu's bottom line by sending an expert like Xue Wuhuan to assassinate Yi Guchen. At this moment, looking at Yi Guchen, who was suffering from the blood-dissolving demonic poison, many people sighed. They had heard Xue Wuhuan's words. The blood-dissolving demonic poison couldn't be neutralized. However, they didn't know that Yi Guchen's perfect body, flawless diamond body, and rare fire and lightning all had the effect of restraining the poison. Therefore, the blood-dissolving demonic poison couldn't threaten Yi Guchen's life for the time being. However, Zhou Tong and the others were smiling. Although Yi Guchen had killed a life and death chamber expert and shocked them, it was still uncertain whether Yi Guchen could save his own life. This greenwood heart is for you. The young war emperor's face was cold. He waved his hand, and the greenwood elemental divine item that looked like a heart fell into Yiguchen's hand. There was no more suspense in the outcome of the bet, and the young war emperor didn't want to dwell on it. Yiguchen, I hope you're still alive. After giving Yiguchen a deep look, the young war emperor turned and left. Yiguchen kept the greenwood heart. The merit counting assembly thus came to an end. However, it was clear that Yiguchen's deeds would once again shake the world. Chapter 466. After counting the merit points, the 7 major forces and the rest of the people left the arena one after another. However, many people still looked at Yiguchen with surprise and pity. They were surprised by Yiguchen's ability to kill a life-and-death realm expert. Unfortunately, he was poisoned by the blood-dissolving demonic poison. It was hard to say if he could survive. Even if he could survive, it would cause great damage to his body. However, Yiguchen did not care. His 10 Holy Sun tokens and 1 Clan Elder token could be exchanged for a total of 2,000 merit points. He had the Bronze Elixir Furnace, many sword and cultivation techniques. Therefore, Yiguchen did not plan to exchange for those things. In the end, he spent 2,000 merit points to exchange for a fire attribute divine item, the Fire Spirit Seed. As a fire attribute divine item, the Fire Spirit Seed's quality was slightly lower than the greenwood heart. However, it was still slightly better than the Blackwater Jade. As for the blood-dissolving demonic poison, Yiguchen believed that there was always a way out. He could even neutralize Gu Xiaoyang's soul spirit devouring vermin. Why would he be afraid of the blood-dissolving demonic poison? On the way back to the inn, Feng Manlu stopped and said, Qing He, you elders take care of Yiguchen. I'm going out of the city. Everyone in the Sword Sect Tower, including Yiguchen, looked at Feng Manlu. Lord Feng Manlu. Elder Qing He wanted to say something but stopped. I'm just taking a stroll. Feng Manlu smiled faintly and flew away like a gust of wind. Yiguchen shook his head slightly. The Blood Barbarian tribe was going to be in trouble. When they returned to the inn, the news of the arena had spread throughout northern Yang City. The news of Yiguchen killing life and death realm experts could not be hidden. It spread like wildfire. Soon, half of the Saint Origin dynasty would know about it. In an inn, Xiao Wanru heard about Yiguchen's news. She was still excited. Her yearning for the sword sect was even deeper. A good man should be like a sword master. It's a pity that I don't have the chance to meet him in this life. Xiao Wanru's heart was filled with sorrow and self-pity. Madame Xiao walked in and said, Wanru, your wedding is in a few days. Don't keep mentioning the sword sect. What wedding day? I'm just a lowly concubine. Xiao Wanru laughed at herself. As long as you marry into the Shinto family, we will be rich and have no worries. Madame Xiao warned Xiao Wanru again and left. Xiao Wanru's expression was calm. She took out a jade slip from her lapel. It was the jade slip that Yiguchen had given her. Madame Xiao had discarded it, but she had found it again. Did Wanru really do something wrong? Xiao Wanru had mixed feelings as she held the jade slip tightly. Yiguchen was recuperating in the Sword Sect's pagoda forest. The blood-dissolving demonic poison was like a bone gangrene that could not be removed through conventional means. It was as if it had taken root in Yiguchen's body. This barbarian race's poison is quite strange. Yiguchen thought to himself. If it were not for his special physique and the method to restrain the poison, an ordinary person would have been tormented by the blood-dissolving demonic poison. At this moment, another disciple came in to report that someone wanted to see Yiguchen. Not long after, Dragon Girl walked in. You actually killed Shui Lieshan. Dragon Girl's face was still full of surprise as she sized up Yiguchen. You don't believe me? Yiguchen smiled faintly. No, it's just that you're exceeding my expectations more and more. I take back what I said before. Perhaps you really do have the qualifications to fight with Four Crown King. Dragon Girl said. Oh, then Four Crown King also has this ability? Yiguchin asked curiously. I don't know about that. I only know that Four Crown King fought with a life and death chamber expert and retreated safely. Dragon Girl said. Yiguchin's eyes flickered. To be able to retreat safely from a life and death chamber expert was already proof of Four Crown King's ability. Let's not talk about this for now. About this blood-dissolving demonic poison, do you have an antidote? Yiguchin asked. Dragon Girl was from the barbarian race, so her understanding of the blood barbarian race's poison must be deeper than theirs. Dragon Girl's face turned solemn when she heard this. This poison is quite infamous among the barbarian race. There's no direct antidote. Oh, that's a bit troublesome. Yiguchin said. However, it's not completely impossible. Have you heard of the ancient desolate forbidden zone? Dragon Girl asked. It seems to be a desolate land at the border of the Five Elements land and the Great Desolate Mansion. Yiguchin vaguely heard Chu Qingqi mention it. The ancient desolate forbidden zone is rumored to be a battlefield left behind 1,000 years ago. In the deepest part of the forbidden zone, there's an ancient arena. Whoever is recognized by the arena can obtain some rare rewards. There's also the so-called life and death intent. Life and death intent. Yiguchin's eyes narrowed slightly. The life and death intent was a kind of artistic conception when comprehending the hidden latch of life and death. For those who had reached the 9 changes of the divine soul, the life and death intent was extremely important. Of course, the life and death intent is only one of the rewards. To cure your blood-dissolving demonic poison, you need another reward. It's a sacred medicine called the 5 Elements Sacred Fruit. Dragon Girl said. 5 Elements Sacred Fruit. Yiguchin raised his eyebrows slightly. It's rumored that sacred medicine like the 5 Elements Sacred Fruit has the power of the 5 Elements cycle. Whoever consumes it will obtain the 5 Elements mystic power. Although the blood-dissolving demonic poison is difficult to eradicate, with the 5 Elements mystic power, it can be purified and removed. Dragon Girl said. I see. Yiguchin nodded slightly. Using the power of the 5 Elements cycle to purify and remove the blood-dissolving demonic poison was indeed a way. Yiguchin secretly kept it in mind. If Yiguchin obtained the 5 Elements Sacred Fruit, it would not only be used to remove the poison. The 5-colored golden core and the 5 Elements Sword intent would require the help of the 5 Elements mystic power. After that, Dragon Girl left. With her status, it was not suitable for her to stay for too long. Yiguchin then began to use the 5-colored golden core to refine the verdant wood heart and the fire soul seed. These 2 divine items were helpful to the 5-colored golden core. After refining the fire soul seed, Yiguchin felt that his fledgling fire sword intent had improved again. The power of the vermilion bird totem had also increased by another level. After he finished refining the green wood heart, Yiguchin felt a vigorous life force spreading out from his body. Even the blood-dissolving demonic poison was suppressed a little more by it. The green dragon totem was the ancestor totem of the wood element. It represented endless vitality. When he manifested the green dragon claw again, it was more solid and its power increased again. In the future, if he could find the 5 Elements Sacred Fruit, Yiguchin felt that the 5-colored golden core would undergo a great transformation. In the next few days, Yiguchin stayed in his room to recuperate. There were rumors that Yiguchin's body was affected and his strength was not as strong as before. There were also people who said that Yiguchin's battle with the life and death chamber expert had exhausted his potential and it would be difficult for him to make any further progress. It was unknown where these rumors came from, but it was obvious that they were targeting Yiguchin. Yiguchin did not mind. The blood-dissolving demonic poison could not affect him too much. Not long after this storm, another big event in northern Yang City was about to begin. It was the marriage between the Shinto family and the Gongsun family. This matter was also a topic that many people in northern Yang City took delight in talking about. Yiguchin naturally knew about it, but he did not mind as it did not matter. Since Xiao Wanru had made her choice, Yi Guqin would not interfere. On this day, the Shinto family was decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was finally the day of the wedding. Chapter 467. Looking from afar, the Shinto family's residence was decorated with lanterns and decorations, making it look extremely festive. As a super family, the Shinto family had its own heritage after all. Previously, when they sent out the wedding invitations, they had invited many people from various factions. At this moment, in the Shinto family's hall, there were more than 100 tables set up for the wedding banquet. It was very lively. At the head of the hall, a middle-aged man was sitting. He had an unconcealable smile on his face. He was the head of the Shinto family, Shinto Zhan. Today, his son, Shinto Miao, would be marrying Gongsun Xiaoye. In the future, the Shinto family's strength would definitely expand, surpassing the other super families. Ha! Congratulations, Shinto family head. In the future, the great desolate mansion will no longer have any space for us families. A middle-aged man went forward and cupped his fists. He was the head of the Zhao family, and the Zhao family was also one of the super families in the great desolate mansion. Around him, there were a few other people who were also heads of super families. Before this, the Shinto family's strength was not much different from theirs. But today, after the marriage with the Gongsun family, the Shinto family's strength would definitely soar, surpassing them. You flatter me. Shinto Zhan smiled. His words sounded humble, but the pride hidden in them could not be concealed. The Zhao family head and the rest were smiling on the surface, but they were extremely unhappy in their hearts. Unfortunately, they could not change the will of the Gongsun family. Furthermore, it was said that this marriage was facilitated by the pillar of the Gongsun family, the peak 4-star blacksmith, Gongsun Yu. Shinto Zhan naturally knew that the Zhao family head and the rest would definitely be unhappy, but it did not matter. In the future, when the Shinto family's strength soared, they could only hold their grievances in. This was the superiority brought by strength. Thankfully, there is that blacksmith's handbook. Shinto Zhan rejoiced in his heart. If not for that handbook, the Gongsun family would probably look down on the Shinto family, and would not marry the pearl in their palm, Gongsun Xiaoye, to Shinto Miao. Brother Shinto, it's been a long time. At this moment, a voice with some apprehension sounded, interrupting Shinto Zhan's thoughts. Shinto Zhan looked over. It was Xiao Lai and Madame Xiao. Oh, so it's Brother Xiao. Shinto Zhan smiled casually, his tone somewhat evasive. A long time ago, Xiao Lai had coincidentally saved the heavily injured Shinto Zhan. That was why Shinto Zhan had agreed to become in-laws with Xiao Lai if it was possible in the future. However, after such a long time had passed, Shinto Zhan had long forgotten about this kindness. What annoyed him the most was that the Xiao clan had actually interfered at the crucial moment of Shinto Miao and Gongsun Xiaoye's marriage. Furthermore, the small Xiao family, which was almost exterminated and only had the 3 of them left, did not know their own limits. They wanted to rely on their previous kindness to establish a relationship with the Shinto family. This caused Shinto Zhan to be somewhat displeased with Xiao Lai and the others. He also directly instructed Shinto Miao that he could marry her, but she could only be a concubine. He didn't expect them to agree. Brother Shinto, from today onwards, we are in-laws, Xiao Lai said. Madame Xiao, who was standing at the side, also had a fawning look on her face. Her attitude was extremely humble. Shinto Zhan nodded lightly, his aura overbearing. Seeing this, a trace of anger flashed in Xiao Lai's eyes. He did not expect that the person who had always said that he would repay kindness would have such an ungrateful face today. Seeing this, Madame Xiao tugged at Xiao Lai's sleeve, then raised a cup of wine with Xiao Lai. She said with a fawning tone, Haha, Master Shinto, from today onwards, we are all one family. Come, my husband and I will toast you. Xiao Lai sighed and raised his cup with Madame Xiao. Shinto Zhan tapped his finger on the back of his chair, looking indifferently at Xiao Lai and Madame Xiao. He had no intention of raising his cup. Madame Xiao was a little embarrassed, while the veins on Xiao Lai's forehead trembled slightly. The greatest humiliation was being ignored. I have no objections if you want to hug the thighs of my Shinto family. After all, you have saved my life. However, I hope that you will understand your own status in the future. In my Shinto family, even a dog is more honorable than you. Do you understand? Xiao Lai's face instantly darkened. Madame Xiao nodded and said, "Of course we understand. We will definitely not let Master Shinto worry. Step aside. I still have to receive guests." Shinto Zhan said. At this moment, a ceremonial official shouted from afar, "Sealed Saber Royal Palace's Nia Ling and Mo Juechen have arrived." To think that the Sealed Saber Royal Palace's elites have arrived. Shinto Zhan hurriedly stood up and went forward to receive them, ignoring Xiao Lai and the rest. Damn it! The veins on Xiao Lai's forehead bulged as anger surged in his heart. Husband, bear with it. It's better to avoid trouble. Even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for your daughter. Madame Xiao advised from the side. Hearing this, Xiao Lai took a deep breath, suppressing the humiliation and anger in his heart. As time passed, more and more guests arrived. The Sealed Saber Royal Palace's Nia Ling and the rest came because Shinto Miao was also a disciple on the Heavenly Saber list. They naturally had to show their appreciation. Soon after, Zhou Tong also arrived. He naturally had his own motives for coming. This was because Zhou Tong knew that Shinto Miao and Yiguchen had a grudge. An enemy's enemy was a friend. Therefore, Zhou Tong was very willing to befriend the Shinto family. In the future, they might be an ally against Yiguchen. Today is young Master Shinto's wedding. I have specially come to congratulate you. Zhou Tong gently fanned himself with a smile. Not at all. Young Master Zhou's arrival brings light to my Shinto family's humble dwelling. Shinto Zhan personally welcomed him with a smile. Soon after, Consonance Palace's LV Qinghan, Zither Fairy, Ren Tingting, and the rest also arrived. As Gongsun Xiaoye was also a disciple of Consonance Palace, they naturally had to come as well. It was only when the wedding was about to begin that Gongsun Xianlong finally arrived. Ha, brother Xianlong, we will be in-laws in the future. Shinto Zhan laughed when he saw Gongsun Xianlong arrive. They were both in-laws, but Shinto Zhan's attitude towards Gongsun Xianlong was completely different from his attitude towards Xiao Lai. Then I will have to trouble you in the future. Gongsun Xianlong did not smile. He actually loved Gongsun Xiaoye dearly. However, for the family and for Gongsun Yu's breakthrough, he had no choice but to sacrifice her happiness. Therefore, Gongsun Xianlong was actually extremely opposed to this marriage. Shinto Zhan could see the coldness in Gongsun Xuanlong's eyes, but he did not mind. After all, as long as the marriage was completed, they would still be a family in the future. Finally, it was time for the wedding to officially begin. Gongsun Xiaoye, who was wearing a bright red wedding dress, walked over with graceful steps. Her figure was petite and exquisite, and her face was like a hibiscus. Originally, she was still a little immature and spoiled. Now that she had blushed and had red lipstick on her lips, she revealed a youthful beauty. However, at this moment, her small face was filled with displeasure, as if she was sulking. Not far behind her was Xiao Wanru. It was also a wedding dress, but when Xiao Wanru wore it, she looked even more mature and elegant. Her face, which was originally without any makeup, was also covered in red makeup. It was as bright as a peach and as bright as a plum. When they saw Gongsun Xiaoye, no one was surprised. However, when Xiao Wanru appeared, many people revealed strange expressions. Enjoying the blessings of two lovers. Zhou Tong clicked his tongue inside. At this moment, Xiao Wanru was following behind Gongsun Xiaoye like a servant girl. Her hand was hidden in her sleeve, and no one saw that she was holding a jade slip in her hand. Chapter 468. Looking at the two beauties walking over, even Shintu Miao, a boorish man who did not understand romance, could not help but feel his heart burn. He realized that Xiao Wanru was even more beautiful than Gongsun Xiaoye after dressing up. After all, Gongsun Xiaoye was still young, while Xiao Wanru was already slim and elegant. The marriage ceremony officially begins, a ceremonial official shouted. What followed was a long and tedious ceremony. One of the segments was for the betrothed to propose a toast to their elders. Shintu Zhan and Gongsun Xianlong sat on the main seats, ready to accept the toast from Shintu Miao and the others. At this moment, Xiao Lai was also prepared to sit forward. No matter what, he was still Xiao Wanru's father, so he should accept a toast. What are you doing? Shintu Zhan saw this and said indifferently. I am also Xiao Wanru's father, so I need to accept her toast. Xiao Lai suppressed his anger and said coldly. Take note of your status. When was there ever a place for you here? Shintu Zhan swept his cold brows. Today was the day for him and Gongsun Xianlong to cultivate their relationship by marriage. Xiao Lai coming forward was unappreciative. Xiao Lai did not speak and still wanted to sit. After all, he also wanted to participate in his daughter's marriage. Move aside. Shintu Zhan's face darkened. With a wave of his sleeve, a majestic true qi wind swept towards Xiao Lai and Madame Xiao. Xiao Lai's chest tightened, and he took a few steps back. Madame Xiao even fell, her entire body covered in dust. Father, mother. Xiao Wanru saw this and her expression changed instantly. Wanru, we are fine. The wedding will continue. Madame Xiao endured the pain and pulled Xiao Lai's sleeve to prevent him from acting rashly. She smiled and apologized to Shintu Zhan. Shintu Zhan snorted and did not speak further. Xiao Wanru's entire body was trembling. Extreme humiliation surged from the bottom of her heart. At this moment, she was extremely regretful. What young madam of the Shintu family? What glory and wealth! It all seemed like a joke now. The three of them from the Xiao family were even lower than a dog in the Shintu family. As for Xiao Lai, this indomitable father in Xiao Wanru's eyes, he had been humiliated and could not resist. Was this what they really wanted? Was this what Madame Xiao meant by being above others? Xiao Wanru bit her red lips with her pearly white teeth. She couldn't take it anymore. I've had enough. I won't marry Shintu Miao, even if I die. Xiao Wanru suddenly shouted and stretched out her hand. The jade slip was in her hand. Originally, Xiao Wanru did not want to use this jade slip. This was because she didn't know Yi Guqin's true identity. She thought that even if he came, he wouldn't be of any help. Instead, he would be a burden. But now, Xiao Wanru was already at her wit's end. She could only try everything she could. With a crack, Xiao Wanru crushed the jade slip. Right at the same time, within the inn where the sword-sex forest of pagodas resided, Yi Guqin, who was recuperating with his eyes closed, opened his eyes with a slightly puzzled expression. He took out a jade slip from his origin ring, which emitted a faint light. Wasn't that jade slip thrown away? Yi Guqin saw with his own eyes that Madame Xiao threw the jade slip he gave to Xiao Wanru into the smelly ditch. But he didn't expect that the jade slip would actually react at this moment. Did she pick it up? Yi Guqin's eyes twinkled slightly. He thought of that night again. By the bonfire, the girl who was as gentle as water described her vision for the future. Xiao Wanru was originally a girl with pure thoughts. Unfortunately, she had been led astray by Madame Xiao, and her temperament had also changed. Although Yi Guqin could completely ignore this matter. But after thinking about it, Yi Guqin still sighed in the end. This is the last time. Yi Guqin slowly got up and changed his clothes. Then, he took out the bamboo hat and put it on. He didn't really want Xiao Wanru to know his true identity. This might make her feel a little better. Then, Yi Guqin, who was dressed in black and wearing a bamboo hat, walked in the direction of the Shintu family clan. On the other side, the originally lively atmosphere in the Shinto family clan's hall instantly turned into a frozen deathly stillness following Xiao Wanru's shout. The surrounding people's gazes fell on Xiao Wanru with surprise and suspicion. Today was the Shinto family's wedding day, and it was also an important moment for the marriage alliance with the Gongsun family. They had never expected that this girl, who was participating in the marriage alliance as a concubine, would be so bold. One had to know that if it really affected the marriage alliance, the consequences for the Shinto family would be extremely serious. Some people turned their gazes towards Shinto Zhan. Sure enough, Shinto Zhan's face suddenly became extremely gloomy. "What is your Xiao family doing?" Shinto Zhan's tone was extremely cold. If not for the fact that the wedding was still ongoing, Shinto Zhan could not help but directly attack and teach Xiao Wanru a lesson. "Sorry, this girl has taken things too hard." Madame Xiao saw the situation and hurriedly explained. Then, she walked in front of Xiao Wanru and said in a low voice, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" "Mother, I have had enough. Let's leave this place, okay? We can go anywhere." Xiao Wanru bit her lips and pleaded. "Shut up, you unfilial daughter." Madame Xiao slapped Xiao Wanru and said in a strict tone. Xiao Wanru covered her red cheeks, tears welling up in her eyes. "Enough, stop. The girl is right, let's go." Xiao Lai's eyes were red, like an angry lion. The surrounding people looked at the family of three with a mocking expression. This was the most laughable thing about small people. "I'm sorry to have made a fool of myself in front of everyone. This Xiao family is shameless and wants to force their daughter to be my son's concubine. I can't do anything about it even if I don't agree, but now they are throwing a tantrum." Sigh. Shinto Zhan sighed slightly. Shinto Miao also cooperated and said, "Father, I have decided that such a lowly girl is indeed not worthy of me. I will only love Xiao Yu in the future." As the Shinto father and son spoke, everyone's eyes were filled with surprise. Obviously, the Xiao family had been completely abandoned, and now they were even more disgraceful. Xiao Lai heard this and his body trembled with anger. Xiao Wanru's face was also pale, feeling extremely humiliated. Only Madame Zhao's expression changed. She hurriedly knelt in front of Shinto Zhan and shouted, "Shinto family head, we were wrong. Please, don't chase us away. Even if our Wanru can't be your concubine, she can be your servant." Madame Xiao was extremely unwilling to be abandoned after finally hugging the thigh of a super family. Xiao Wanru heard this and only showed despair. She had completely given up on Madame Xiao. Shinto Zhan's lips curled into a mocking smile, as if he was looking at a clown. The surrounding guests laughed when they saw this. Being able to act like this, he could be considered one of the best. At this moment, a figure wearing a bamboo hat slowly walked in from outside the hall. Originally, everyone's attention was on the Xiao family, but when this figure walked in, it was as if he had a natural aura, causing many people's gazes to shift to him. "You are." Shinto Zhan, Shinto Miao and the rest's gazes also landed on this person. The Shinto family seemed to have never sent a wedding invitation to such a secretive person. Xiao Wanru cried tears of joy when she saw the person who had come. She did not expect that he would actually resist the pressure of a super family and really appear here. However, the joy on Xiao Wanru's face immediately turned to worry. She was afraid that the youth in front of her could not withstand the Shinto family's anger. Chapter 469. Looking at the figure that had suddenly appeared in the hall. Many people stared at him in surprise. Today was the Shinto family's wedding, and the people invited were all influential figures. Why would such a secretive person appear? "Ah, it's you." Gongsun Xiaoya cried out when she saw the person. She had been playing with the sword embryo that Yi Guqin had forged day and night. Furthermore, Gongsun Xiaoya had said that if possible, she would rather marry the youth in front of her than marry Shinto Miao. "It's actually our young friend." Gongsun Xianlong, who was sitting in the main seat, exclaimed in surprise. In addition, there were a small number of people in the crowd who had participated in the blacksmith convention and knew the identity of the person in front of them. What, this youth is the blacksmith genius who defeated Miss Gongsun at the blacksmith convention? Many people revealed looks of surprise. Back then, the blacksmith convention had caused quite a stir in northern Liang City. Especially at the convention, the blacksmith genius named Shen, who had shown his talent, had become famous. Gongsun Xuanlong's evaluation had raised Shen's status even higher, saying that he had the potential to become a 4-star or even a 5-star blacksmith master in the future. Just this sentence alone was enough to make many people take this youth seriously. However, after the blacksmith convention ended, the youth had disappeared without a trace, as if he had disappeared. Who would have thought that he would come here today? Many people were sizing up Yi Guqin with interest. In the crowd, only LV Qinghan had a strange expression. It could be said that among everyone present, only she knew that the blacksmith genius Shen, who was famous in northern Liang City, was the famous grandmaster swordsman. However, LV Qinghan had never revealed it to the public. Shintu Yuan was also in the crowd. When he saw Yi Guqin appear, his expression did not look good. Back at the blacksmith convention, his brilliance had been completely overshadowed and he had lost face. Now that he saw Yi Guqin daring to come to the Shintu family, his expression turned cold. Oh, is this the forging genius that appeared at the blacksmith convention? I heard that brother Xian Long had personally invited him to join the Gongsun family, but was rejected. Looking at Yi Guqin, Shintu Zhan said indifferently. That's right. This young man will not be a mere mortal in the future. Gongsun Xianlong sighed. However, everyone present had a question in their minds. What is this smithing genius doing here? Was it just a simple celebration? Why have you come to my Shintu family? Shintu Yuan took a step forward and said coldly. Yi Guqin lowered his voice slightly and said in a voice that didn't sound like his own, I'm here to take someone away. Who? Shintu Yuan frowned. Xiao Wanru, Yi Guqin said calmly. As soon as these words were spoken, it was as if a huge rock had fallen into the ocean, setting off huge waves. The eyes of many people present were filled with interest. Could it be that there was a story between this forging genius with a bright future and Xiao Wanru? Xiao Wanru focused her beautiful eyes and looked at Yi Guqin. Tears blurred her vision. She remembered that when her family of 3 was being hunted down by the blood barbarians, this young man had appeared and saved them from the shadow of death. And what about them? What did they repay him with? Madame Zhao's cold words and mockery. Even she herself had said that she would be the young madam of the Shintu family in the future, and that they would not be in the same world. However, even after being treated like this by them, this young man had still appeared in front of Xiao Wanru after crushing the jade scroll. It was like a ray of light in the midst of despair. Xiao Wanru bit her lips. She was ashamed, touched, and all sorts of complicated emotions surfaced. There was even a faint trace of being moved. Yi Guqin's appearance was hope for Xiao Wanru. However, to the people of the Shintu family, it was a serious provocation. Previously, they had said that they wanted to chase the 3 people from the Xiao family out. However, chasing them out and being brought out by Yi Guqin were 2 different concepts. What was more serious was that Yi Guqin's actions made it difficult for people not to have wild and fanciful thoughts. What was the relationship between him and Xiao Wanru? And Xiao Wanru had almost married Shintu Miao. In this way, wouldn't it make Shintu Miao's head glow green? At this moment, Shintu Miao's expression suddenly turned cold. He stared at Yi Guqin and said, What is your relationship with Xiao Wanru? What right do you have to take her away? Just friends, so I'm taking her away, Yi Guqin said lightly. Xiao Wanru felt a little disappointed when she heard this. Just friends. Shintu Miao naturally did not believe it. There was a trace of anger in his eyes as he looked at Xiao Wanru and said, You bitch, you insisted on marrying me back then, and now you're doing this? Xiao Wanru's face was pale. The words, bitch, were like sharp arrows that pierced her heart. Shintu Miao, watch your mouth, Yi Guqin said in a low voice. Everyone present was speechless when they heard this. Telling Shinto Miao to watch his mouth in such a tone in the Shinto family's territory. It was true that the ignorant were fearless. Only LV Qinghan shook her head slightly and sighed. If it were anyone else, they might not have the confidence and qualifications, but Yi Guqin definitely did. Shinto Miao's expression darkened. Just as he was about to flare up, Madame Xiao stepped forward. However, Madame Xiao rushed forward and said, "Young Master Shinto, please calm down. Our family has absolutely nothing to do with him. Back then, he shamelessly wanted to pursue Wanru but was rejected by us. Now, he shamelessly came to make trouble." "How shameless?" Madame Xiao hurriedly explained, afraid that the Shinto family would vent their anger on them. "Oh, is that so?" Shinto Miao snorted coldly. Yi Guqin frowned slightly under the black veil covering his face. "Mother, what are you talking about?" Xiao Wanru shouted. "Madam, are you crazy?" Xiao Lai could not stand it anymore. "I'm not crazy. You're the crazy ones. The Shinto family is a great family. How can a brat like him provoke them? Now, he's even trying to kidnap Wanru. What is he thinking?" Madame Xiao started to make a scene, scolding like a shrew. Yi Guqin's gaze was cold. He had come here because of Xiao Wanru. However, if Madame Xiao still had such an attitude, Yi Guqin would not waste his time here. "Sorry, Wanru is willing to go with you." Xiao Wanru bit her lips and went forward. She tugged at Yi Guqin's sleeve, her beautiful eyes filled with desire. She could not stand it anymore. Seeing Xiao Wanru's actions, many people looked like they were watching a show. "Bitch!" Shinto Miao could not suppress the anger in his heart. He did not care that they were at a wedding banquet. He stretched out his hand and punched at Yi Guqin with a fist as big as a bowl. Many people present shook their heads and clicked their tongues. They knew that this young man was a forging genius, but they did not know his strength. No matter what, Shinto Miao was a disciple on the Heavenly Blade list of the titled Saber Royal Palace. His strength was not ordinary. Just when everyone thought that this young man would be injured by Shinto Miao, the scene that happened next made the entire hall dead silent. Yi Guqin casually stretched out a hand and blocked Shinto Miao's fist. Then, he swung his leg and hit Shinto Miao's chest. Shinto Miao groaned as the blood in his chest churned. He was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone's gaze froze. Today's matter could not be resolved peacefully. Chapter 470. At the Shinto family's wedding banquet, he had sent the bridegroom, Shinto Miao, flying with a single blow. This was undoubtedly a slap to the Shinto family's face in front of everyone. However, there was another thing that caught everyone's attention. Shinto Miao was a disciple of the Heavenly Saber list. His strength was extraordinary. Even a casual punch from him was not something an ordinary Divine Soul Realm cultivator could withstand. However, that youth had blocked it with one hand. He did not even use his chi. Then, with a kick, he had sent Shinto Miao flying. This meant that the youth's strength far exceeded Shinto Miao's. Could it be that this youth is not only talented in forging, but his martial cultivation is also extraordinary? Many people looked at Yi Guqin with deep gazes. Zhou Tong's gaze swept up and down, revealing a trace of suspicion. He felt that this youth was somewhat familiar. However, he did not immediately associate him with Yi Guqin. After all, Yi Guqin had never displayed his forging talent. "You." On the high seat, Shinto Zhan's expression was solemn. His aura suddenly spread. He did not expect his son, Shinto Miao, to be sent flying with a single blow despite his strength. Where was the Shinto family's face? Moreover, today was the most important day. The Gongsun family was also present. Sure enough, Gongsun Xiaoya pouted and muttered to herself, "He's too weak." Shinto Miao heard this and was about to vomit blood. His gaze was ferocious as he stared at Yi Guqin. He wanted to attack. If you don't find it embarrassing, you can attack as you wish. Yi Guqin was very calm with his hands behind his back. Shintu Miao's chest heaved as he clenched his fists tightly. However, he did not attack in the end. This was because although it was a simple exchange, that terrifying physical strength had made Shintu Miao extremely wary. Even if he attacked with all his strength, he would not be able to gain the upper hand. Junior, do you know that today is the wedding banquet of the Shintu family and the Gongsun family? By doing this, are you looking down on our families? Shintu Zhan said coldly. With his status, it was not appropriate for him to attack directly. Instead, he dragged the Gongsun family into it. Seeing this, Gongsun Xianlong cursed silently. Shintu Zhan actually wanted to drag him down. Gongsun Xianlong had guessed that this youth called Qin might have an expert master behind him. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such an outstanding disciple. As powerful as the Gongsun clan was, they didn't want to offend such an expert. When Yi Guqin heard this, he said indifferently, "Let me take Xiao Wanru away. Your wedding can continue." To be honest, with Yi Guqin's true identity, he really wasn't afraid of the super aristocratic families. "You, a person without any status, dare to speak to me like this?" Shintu Zhan was so angry that he laughed. "Let go of my Wanru. You're dragging her into the fire pit." Madame Xiao screamed and glared at Yi Guqin. "Enough, let's go. We will not stay in the Shintu family any longer." Xiao Lai shouted coldly and walked towards Yi Guqin. If you don't listen to my advice, you will regret it." Madame Xiao gritted her teeth and shouted. From her point of view, entering the Shintu family was the best choice. "Do you think you can leave today?" Shintu Zhan said coldly. Immediately, many Divine Soul Realm family guards appeared outside the hall. There were even a few Shintu family elders at the life and death chamber. Clearly, Yi Guqin would not be able to leave unscathed after disturbing the Shintu family's wedding banquet. "Brother Yi," Xiao Wanru whispered. Her beautiful eyes revealed extreme worry. The thing she was most worried about had happened. The dignity of a super aristocratic family was not something that anyone could challenge. In Xiao Wanru's eyes, although Yi Guqin had talent and strength, he had no status or background. How could he withstand the anger of a super aristocratic family? "I'm just an ordinary Divine Soul Realm warrior." To be able to receive such treatment from the Shintu family is really a pleasant surprise. Yi Guqin was very calm from the beginning. Actually, it would be best if he could take Xiao Wanru away safely. However, from the looks of it, that was unlikely. Many people in the surroundings also revealed strange expressions. Even in such a situation, he could still face the Shintu family so calmly. What was the identity of this youth? "Brother Shintu, it's better to avoid trouble. This young friend's forging talent is amazing. I'm afraid his future achievements will not be low." At this moment, Gongsun Xianlong spoke. He admired Yi Guqin very much, so he naturally did not want to see a blacksmithing genius fall. That will depend on whether this person is tactful or not. If he is willing to kneel on the ground and kowtow to apologize, perhaps I can forgive his offense today. Of course, the Xiao family will not let him take her away. Shintu Zhan said proudly. "Sigh, young friend, let's take a step back." Gongsun Xianlong sighed. Yi Guqin's eyes revealed a strange look. He did not expect Gongsun Xianlong to speak up for him. Beside him, Xiao Wanru bit her lips and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Yi. It's Wanru's fault. I should not have dragged you down. Wanru is already very happy that you came, so." Xiao Wanru steeled her heart and decided to stay. She did not want to be a burden to Yi Guqin. "Young friend, thank you very much. But now, you should leave first." Xiao Lai also cupped his fists towards Yi Guqin gratefully. Yi Guqin sighed. Indeed, just relying on his identity as a forging genius was not enough to make the Shintu family fear him. At this moment, Madame Xiao said sarcastically, "Kid, have you seen reality? Do you think you are a savior? What about now? What can you do? You can't do anything. In front of the Shinto family, you are nothing. She turned to look at Xiao Lai. Xiao Wanru said, do you understand now? Am I right? I asked you to stay in the Shinto family, but you are unwilling. Xiao Lai and Xiao Wanru lowered their heads silently. Just when everyone thought that this youth would give in, Yiguchin said in an extremely indifferent tone, I'm sorry. Today, I want to take someone away. No one can stop me, not even the Shinto family. Once these words were said, everyone was shocked. Those who came to attend the wedding banquet, including some geniuses, were all astonished. They had never seen someone who overestimated their own capabilities like that. Did you see that, Brother Xianlong? It's not that I don't want to forgive him. It's just that he doesn't know what's good for him. Since that's the case, I can only teach him a lesson. Shinto Zhan said coldly. He waved his hands slightly, and the Divine Soul Realm guards on the periphery rushed towards Yiguchin, wanting to suppress and capture him. Yiguchin's eyes flashed coldly. His feet moved, and without using any chi, he punched out with his fists and legs. The sound was like thunder. One by one, the guards spat out blood and flew backwards. Even experts at the 7th or 8th transformation of the Divine Soul Realm were the same. Seeing this, the surrounding people were slightly shocked. The smithing genius martial arts strength was beyond their expectations. Seeing this, Shinto Zhan's face became gloomier. His eyes flashed slightly, and an elder at the life and death chamber threw out a palm attack. Be careful. Xiao Wanru saw this, and her expression changed as she cried out in alarm. Yiguchin's eyes narrowed, and his physical strength surged as he threw out a punch as well. Bang! There was a loud explosion, and a shockwave spread out. Yiguchin retreated more than 10 steps. This shockwave also flipped the bamboo hat on Yiguchin's head. A handsome face that was as sharp as a knife was revealed in front of everyone's eyes. At this moment, everyone's gaze froze. Shinto Zhan, Shinto Miao, Zhou Tong, Ren Tingting, and the others' faces were filled with shock. How is this possible? It's actually you, Yiguchin. The entire hall seemed to be frozen. Disbelief and shock appeared on everyone's faces. Chapter 471. Under the bamboo hat was a face that no one had expected. They had never imagined that the youth who had amazed everyone at the blacksmith convention like a resplendent shooting star was actually the sword sect's Yiguchin. This result was too unexpected, causing many people to be stunned and unable to regain their senses for a moment. Only Xiao Wanru and a few others were slightly confused because they had never seen the sword sect's true appearance. However, at this moment, when she heard the name, Yiguchin, Xiao Wanru's mind seemed to have been struck by lightning. She froze on the spot. Her gaze suddenly focused on Yiguchin's face, as if she wanted to examine him carefully. This silent youth who had been escorting them and had even been scolded by Madame Xiao was the sword sect's Yiguchin who had swept through his peers with invincible sword power. Xiao Wanru's delicate body trembled as she retreated. An unprecedented shock and paleness appeared on her pretty face. Looking at everyone's shocked expressions, how could Xiao Wanru not know that the youth in front of her was indeed the sword sect that she had admired for a long time? When she thought of this, extreme regret, pain, and shame emerged from the bottom of her heart, almost suffocating her. That night at the campfire, she had reprimanded the youth for slandering the sword sect and even looked down on him because of this. In the end, he was the sword sect and was only reflecting on herself. Later, due to Madame Zhao's influence, Xiao Wanru and Yiguchin had distanced themselves from each other. As a result, at the gates of northern Yang City, Xiao Wanru had chosen to believe Madame Xiao when faced with Yiguchin's kind help and had ignored the jade slip. If not for Xiao Wanru's regret and picking up the jade slip, perhaps she could only choose to endure the endless humiliation and marry into the Shinto family today. All of this had been given to her by Yiguchin. As for Xiao Wanru herself, she had personally rejected Yiguchin because she believed in Madame Xiao. She had even said something as stupid as, "We are not from the same world." Xiao Wanru smiled with incomparable bitterness and self-mockery. Ignoring the fact that she could only be a concubine or servant girl in the Shinto family, so what if she became the young madam of the Shinto family? Compared to the sword sect, the difference was still like heaven and earth. At this moment, incomparable regret spread in Xiao Wanru's heart, forming a thick bitterness. Xiao Lai was also stunned in place, unable to regain his senses for a long time. His guess was actually correct. This young man was really Ye Guqin. Soon after, Xiao Lai's gaze fiercely turned towards Madame Xiao, a strong sense of disappointment and anger shooting out from his eyes. The Xiao clan had personally excluded Ye Guqin, the great god, from their clan. Instead, he was willing to come to the Shinto family and suffer humiliation. How ironic was this scene! However, no one was as shocked as Madame Xiao. Her lips were trembling and her face was extremely pale. Her mind was completely blank because of the shock. She couldn't even think. Plop! Madame Xiao's legs went soft from fear, and she collapsed to the ground. Her dress was soaked, and it emitted a foul smell. Madame Xiao had actually wet herself from fear. No. No. It can't be. Madame Xiao was stupefied as she mumbled to herself. Her face, which was covered with thick makeup, was trembling uncontrollably. What had she done? Madame Xiao could not imagine it herself. Who was Ye Guqin? He was a sword master, one of the 7 great powers, and the most outstanding person in the sword sect Pagoda Forest. At the same time, he was the successor of the Sword King, Feng Manlu. Against such a person, not to mention Shinto Miao, even the entire Shinto family would not be able to touch him. However, Madame Xiao had always been prejudiced against Ye Guqin, mocking and ridiculing him. Thinking about it now, Madame Xiao felt a lingering fear. However, what she felt more was regret, extreme regret. Ye Guqin's status was much higher than Shinto Miao's. Madame Xiao did not choose Ye Guqin, but chose Shinto Miao instead. She was undoubtedly blind, picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons. The surrounding people looked at Madame Xiao with playful gazes. They had previously heard how disrespectful Madame Xiao was to Ye Guqin. On the other side, Gongsun Xiaoya's beautiful eyes were bright, and there was a trace of excitement. Ye Guqin, who was disguised as Shen, had defeated Gongsun Xiaoya in blacksmithing, which had won her over. During the exchange, Ye Guqin had defeated everyone with his sword, which made Gongsun Xiaoya admire him even more. Now, among her peers, the only 2 people whom she admired were the same person. This was undoubtedly like a dream. In comparison, Shinto Miao was simply a fool. Gongsun Xiaoya's heart thumped, and she was actually a little moved. This. On the high seats, Shinto Zhan and Gongsun Xuanlong's faces were also frozen. Gongsun Xianlong was still fine, but he was a little surprised. He did not expect that Ye Guqin, who was unparalleled in the way of the sword, was also proficient in blacksmithing. As for Shinto Zhan, his face darkened. If it were anyone else, Shinto Zhan would not find it difficult to deal with. However, Ye Guqin was different. Whether it was his identity as an inner court disciple of the sword sect Pagoda Forest or as the successor of Feng Manlu, he was not an existence that a super family like him could provoke. One could imagine what would happen if Ye Guqin met with an accident in the Shinto family today. It would not be long before the entire sword sect Pagoda Forest came to kill him. Not only him, but the other guests also had the same thought. The Zhao family head and the others looked at Shinto Zhan's gloomy face, and felt a faint joy in their hearts. This time, they had finally kicked an iron plate. Ye Guqin's face was calm as he looked at the various expressions of the people around him. Since his identity had been exposed, it did not matter. Ye Guqin swept a glance at the Xiao family and the others. Xiao Wanru was extremely ashamed, regretful, and self-blaming. Xiao Lai was also sighing. As for Madame Xiao, her body was curled up, and she did not even dare to look at Ye Guqin. Her shrewish attitude had been completely restrained. Yi Guqin did not care too much. From the beginning to the end, Madame Xiao was not in his eyes. May I ask, Shintu family head, you previously thought that I did not have the qualifications to take Xiao Wanru away. Now, can I take her away? Yi Guqin said indifferently. You. Shintu Zhan felt a lump in his throat, unable to release it. Now, he was the one who was in a difficult position. If he let Xiao Wanru go, it would undoubtedly be a disgrace to the Shintu family. If he did not let her go, then Yi Guqin would not let it go. With his identity, the Shintu family could not do anything to him. Brother Yi, today is the Shintu family's wedding. It's not good for you to openly steal the bride. At this moment, Zhou Tong took a step forward and said indifferently. Yi Guqin glanced at him coldly. Zhou Tong was everywhere. It has nothing to do with you. Yi Guqin could not be bothered to speak further. Zhou Tong was still smiling. He felt that the Shintu family would not compromise so easily. Sure enough, Shintu Zhan's expression was uncertain. Then, he said to Gongsun Xianlong, Brother Xianlong, may I ask if you can inform grandfather Gongsun to come over? When everyone heard this, their expressions changed slightly. Was Shintu Zhan trying to use the Gongsun family's name? After all, the Gongsun family's status was very special. Even the 7 major factions would not do anything to the Gongsun family. Brother Shintu, you. Gongsun Xuanlong's expression turned ugly. Brother Xianlong, don't forget about the blacksmith's letter. Shintu Zhan said in a low voice. When Gongsun Xianlong heard this, although his expression was ugly, he gritted his teeth and informed Gongsun Yu. Seeing Shintu Zhan regain his confidence, Yi Guqin's gaze was calm. It seemed that Shintu Zhan would not give up until all hope was gone. Chapter 472. Yi Guqin, on the other hand, did not make a move. He just stood there calmly. Since Shintu Zhan still insisted, Yi Guqin would make him give up completely. Seeing Yi Guqin alone make the entire Shintu family not dare to make a move, the surrounding guests sighed in their hearts. This was the benefit of status. If he did not have the status of Sword Sect's Talon and wind-sweeping building's successor, Yi Guqin would have been easily suppressed by the Shintu family, even if he had unparalleled talent. But now, Yi Guqin was standing in the middle of the hall, wanting to take Xiao Wanru away. The Shintu family did not dare to make a move against him. Of course, the average person would not have Yi Guqin's boldness. After all, not everyone would be willing to offend the Shintu family for an ordinary girl. Lord Yi. Xiao Wanru wanted to say something, but stopped. Her face was filled with complex emotions and regret. Yi Guqin had actually offended the entire Shintu family for her. If it were anyone else, they might not have done so. I said that if you crushed the jade slip, I would help you once. If you did not pick up the jade slip, I would not have appeared today. Yi Guqin said calmly. Xiao Wanru smiled bitterly when she heard this. If her heart had not changed back then. Perhaps now, there would not be any distance between her and Yi Guqin. Xiao Lai could only sigh when he saw this scene. In fact, it was them who had personally drawn the line with Yi Guqin. As for Madame Xiao, her mind was still blank, as if she had suffered a great blow. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly fell into silence. Obviously, no matter what the outcome was, the Shintu family would definitely lose face. Shintu Miao stared gloomily at Yi Guqin. However, he did not dare to make a move. This was because he knew that even if the 3 blades of the sealed Saber King Palace joined forces, they would not be able to stop Yi Guqin. This person was a malignant star among the elites. I heard that Yi Guqin was poisoned by the Blood Barbarian tribe's blood-dissolving demonic poison. Why does he still look so normal? A small number of people whispered to each other. Zhou Tong's eyes flickered slightly. Everyone in the arena had witnessed the Blood Barbarian life and death chamber attack on Yi Guqin, causing Yi Guqin to be poisoned by the blood-dissolving demonic poison. But now, Yi Guqin seemed to be normal. There were no signs of poisoning. Are you deliberately hiding it? Zhou Tong gave a deep look at Yi Guqin. Time slowly. Around 15 minutes later, a figure descended from the sky outside the hall. Before the person came in, a coarse and old roar spread out, which blind brat dares to disturb the wedding of the Huang Gongsun family. This roar contained the pressure of the divine soul, which was incomparably shocking. Many guests of the guests the step his face changed their others, heaven and earth spiritual bridge expert, it's old man Gongsun. Gongsun Yu is here. Yi Guqin frowned slightly. Gongsun Yu was the only 4-star blacksmith in the Gongsun family. At the same time, he was also a heaven and earth spiritual bridge expert. He could be said to be the pillar of the Gongsun family. However, Yi Guqin was puzzled. What method did Shintu Zhan use to make Gongsun Yu come personally? Moreover, this marriage was strange. It was obvious that Gongsun Xiaoye didn't like Shintu Miao. The marriage between the two families must have some purpose. Just as Yi Guqin was pondering, a white-bearded old man with a rosy face stepped in. He was hale and hearty, and his aura was strong. Although he was old, he didn't have the slightest trace of lethargy. It was Gongsun Yu. Greetings, old man Gongsun. Greetings, senior Gongsun Yu. As soon as Gongsun Yu entered, many people cupped their fists in respect. From this, one could see Gongsun Yu's status and influence. After all, a 4-star blacksmith was an extremely rare existence in the Saint Origin dynasty. If Gongsun Yu could break through and become a 5-star blacksmith, he would be second to none in the Saint Origin dynasty. No one would dare to provoke him. Gongsun Yu did not pay attention to the others. Instead, he looked at Yi Guqin and said, "Are you Yi Guqin, the one who caused a storm in northern Liang City recently?" What Gongsun Yu said was true. Whether it was the exchange or the merit conference, Yi Guqin's name had spread throughout northern Liang City. Even the blacksmith genius who caused a sensation in the blacksmith conference was Yi Guqin. That's me. Greetings, senior Gongsun. Yi Guqin nodded calmly. Well, you've caused enough trouble today. Why don't you give this old man some face? Gongsun Yu said calmly. Hearing this, the surrounding people were slightly surprised. Gongsun Yu had always been known for his fiery temper. They didn't expect him to be so calm in front of Yi Guqin. However, they didn't know, but Gongsun Yu did. After the merit conference, Feng Manlu of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest had gone to the Blood Barbarian tribe. There were some vague news that the Blood Barbarian tribe had encountered an unprecedented disaster. The news hadn't spread completely, but Gongsun Yu had received the news long ago. Although Feng Manlu was also at the Spirit Bridge stage like him, his battle strength couldn't be measured by the Spirit Bridge stage. Even an ordinary Divine Dwelling stage expert wouldn't be a match for Feng Manlu. Yi Guqin was the successor of Feng Manlu. Therefore, even Gongsun Yu wouldn't go too far. Although he wasn't afraid of Feng Manlu, he didn't want to provoke him. On the other side, Shintu Zhan's expression changed slightly. He thought Gongsun Yu would oppress Yi Guqin forcefully. He didn't expect Gongsun Yu to be so gentle. Sorry, I can leave if you want, but you have to take them with you. Yi Guqin pointed at Xiao Wanru and the others. Kid, is there a need to go so far for an ordinary woman? Gongsun Yu frowned slightly. With his status, Yi Guqin didn't give him any face even though he had spoken. Of course. This Yi is a man of his word. I keep my word. Yi Guqin said indifferently. You. Gongsun Yu was so angry that he was fuming. This marriage wasn't just a marriage alliance. It was also related to whether he could obtain the Shintu family's artificer's letter and become a 5-star artificer. Although Gongsun Yu was extremely unhappy that the Shintu family was threatening him with this, he really wanted to break through to the 5-star realm. Old Master Gongsun, please resolve this problem. After the wedding, you will naturally get what you want. Shintu Zhan said. Gongsun Yu glared at Shintu Zhan. If Shintu Zhan didn't have the artificer's letter, Gongsun Yu would have taught this guy a lesson for using him as a tool. Humph, Yi Guchen, I can't touch you, but Gongsun you can. Shintu Zhan sneered, as if his scheme had succeeded. Kid, I'm sorry. If you are stubborn, I can only capture you temporarily. After the wedding is over, I will get the elders of your sword sex pagoda forest to capture you. Gongsun Yu said coldly. He didn't dare to do anything to Yi Guchen, so he could only capture him. Just as everyone thought that Yi Guchen would be captured, Yi Guchen suddenly spoke. Senior, please wait. May I ask what benefits the Shinto family has promised you? Chapter 473. Yi Guchen's words caused the entire hall to suddenly become silent. Many people looked at Yi Guchen. What did he mean? However, there were many people whose eyes were flickering. This was because this marriage alliance was indeed unusual. Although the Shinto family and the Gongsun family were both super families, the Gongsun family was obviously more powerful. With the Gongsun family's status, there was no need for them to lower themselves and marry their precious daughter to Shinto Miao. The Shinto family also did not have anything that could catch the Gongsun family's eye. If that was the case, why would the Gongsun family be willing to marry Gongsun Xiaoya off? Many people were puzzled. Now that Yi Guchen had pointed it out, many people had their own thoughts. Especially the Zhao family head and a few others. They did not understand why the Gongsun family would choose the Shinto family. Kid, what nonsense are you talking about? Gongsun Yu stared. He actually did not want this news to spread. Sacrificing his granddaughter's happiness for himself to break through to become a 5-star blacksmith was not a good reputation. Shintu Zhan had a calm expression. He did not care if the news was leaked, as long as the final result was good. Senior, there is no need to rush to explain. I am not speaking nonsense. If my guess is correct, with senior's status, Shintu Zhan does not have the qualifications to move you. Then, it can only mean that senior has something to ask of Shintu Zhan. Senior's status is extraordinary. I believe that ordinary things are unable to move senior. Something that can move senior must be something that moves senior the most. Senior is a blacksmith and is obsessed with blacksmithing. Then, something that moves senior must be related to blacksmithing. And I heard that senior has been stuck at the peak of 4-star blacksmith for a long time, unable to break through to 5-star. Then, may I make a bold guess? Is the item that Shintu Zhan is offering something that can help senior break through to become a 5-star blacksmith? Yi Guchen's words left the entire hall in dead silence. Gongsun Yu's expression changed, as if he had been seen through. Shintu Zhan's eyes also revealed a strange expression as he looked deeply at Yi Guchen. Zhou Tong looked at Yi Guchen in astonishment. All along, in Zhou Tong's eyes, Yi Guchen only had strength but no intelligence. But now, Yi Guchen's deduction and conjecture actually made Zhou Tong feel that it was perfect, as if it was indeed the case. When he saw Gongsun Yu's expression, Yi Guchen knew that his guess was most likely correct. However, Yi Guchen was puzzled as to what the Shinto family could offer that would allow Gongsun Yu to break through to the 5-star realm. At this moment, the sound of clapping could be heard. Everyone looked over. It was actually Shintu Zhan who was clapping. Yi Guchen, you have indeed exceeded my expectations, but so what? So what if you have guessed correctly? Can you change anything? The marriage between our two families is something that benefits both sides. By blowing up this matter today, not only are you provoking the Shinto family, you are also putting old man Gongsun in an awkward position. Can you bear the consequences? Shintu Zhan sneered. The Gongsun family was a blacksmithing family. In terms of background and connections, they were not inferior to the 7 major factions. Yi Guchen's identity was indeed extraordinary, but no matter what, he was only at the Divine Soul Realm and an inner courtyard disciple. He could not influence the will of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. As for Feng Manlu, no matter how protective he was, he could not act against 2 super families because of Yi Guchen alone. It was also because of this that Shintu Zhan was confident. No matter how much trouble Yiguchen caused today, the outcome was ultimately destined. Junior, you have heard it. It is about time now. If you leave, I will not pursue your responsibility. This is also on account of the Wind Sword King. Gong Sun Yu's tone sank slightly. With his status, this was already the greatest concession he could make. Young Master Yi, thank you, but now, let's forget about it. Xiao Wanru went forward and said. Xiao Lai also nodded. They had all seen Yiguchen's attitude. They knew that Yiguchen had already done his best. Yiguchen smiled and changed the topic to Shinto Zhan. May I ask what benefits the Shinto family can bring to the Gongsun family? Shinto Zhan snorted and took out a book. He wanted to make Yiguchen give up completely. This is a blacksmith's handbook that my Shinto family has painstakingly obtained. It records the experiences of the South Sky region's blacksmiths. Is such a priceless item the best betrothal gift for the Gongsun family? Shinto Zhan's words caused an uproar in the hall. Some of the blacksmiths looked at the book in Shinto Zhan's hand with unconcealable passion in their eyes. The handbook of the South Sky region's blacksmiths was indeed priceless. After all, the blacksmiths of the South Sky region and the Saint Origin dynasty were on a completely different level. There was no lack of blacksmiths in the South Sky region who could forge Heaven Tribulation divine weapons. In the Saint Origin dynasty, Heaven Tribulation divine weapons were rarely seen. When Shinto Zhan took out the handbook, Gong Sun Yu's breathing became rapid. Even with his status, he had lost his composure. It could be seen how important this handbook was to him. The key to becoming a 5-star blacksmith might lie in this handbook. Looking at Gong Sun Yu's gaze, Shinto Zhan was very satisfied. As long as this handbook was in his hands, the marriage between the two families would be as stable as Mount Tai. However, Yiguchen, on the other hand, had a strange look in his eyes. Is this handbook very precious? Yiguchen's words stunned the crowd once again. Was the handbook of the South Sky region's blacksmiths not precious? Youngster, you are, after all, an artificer. How could you not know how precious a master's personal letter is? Even if it's only a tiny bit of the comprehension contained within it, it would still be very beneficial, Gong Sun Yu berated sternly. It seemed that as long as it was related to blacksmithing, Gong Sun Yu's attitude would be very extreme. Ha, you don't even care about a master's handbook. Now I really wonder if your first place in the blacksmith convention is fake. Shinto Zhan also laughed. Yiguchen saw the attitude of the people around him and knew that they thought he was a frog at the bottom of a well. But what was the truth? Yiguchen did have a lot of handbooks like this. They were all left for him by the old drunkard. Yiguchen did not know exactly how many stars the old drunkard was as a blacksmith. But he was definitely better than Gong Sun Yu. Moreover, the old drunkard seemed to have wandered from the South Sky region to the Saint Origin dynasty. So the handbook he left behind should be better than Shinto Zhan's handbook. The reason I said this is because I also have a blacksmith's handbook, and there is more than one. Yiguchen took out a stack of books. And it was not just 1 or 2 books, but more than a dozen. These were all left behind by the old drunkard. With his level of blacksmithing, there were indeed a lot of handbooks left behind. Seeing Yiguchen take out so many handbooks, Shinto Zhan was not surprised. Instead, he laughed as if he had seen the funniest joke. What a joke! Do you think a master's handbook is toilet paper? Who are you trying to fool by taking out so many? Old man Gong Sun. Chapter 474. Hearing Yiguchen's words and seeing Yiguchen take out a pile of letters. Many of the people present began to laugh. If Yiguchen took out a single letter, there might be some people who would believe it. However, taking out a thick stack of letters, the credibility was not very high. A master's letter was an extremely precious item. It could be said that it was something that could not be bought with crystal jades. How could Yiguchen possess so many master's letters? Not only Shinto Zhan, but even Gong Sun Yu's face turned gloomy. It was fine if the junior in front of him did not give him any face, but he actually dared to use a fake to deceive him. If it were anyone else, Gongsun Yu would have already slapped them. Junior, do you really think I'm an old fool? Gongsun Yu's tone already had a trace of unfriendliness. With his status, how could he be fooled by a junior? If this were to spread, where would he put his face as a master blacksmith? Senior Gongsun, are you not even willing to take a look? Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows slightly. You want me to take a look? If I were to take a look today, where would I put my face? Gongsun Yu coldly snorted. Shintu Zhan laughed heartily and said, Yi Guqin, you don't have to waste your effort. Old man Gongsun, to express my sincerity, I can lend you half of the letters. Are you serious? Gongsun Yu's old eyes immediately lit up. Ha, of course. Shintu Zhan split the letter into two and gave one half to Gongsun Yu. Since this letter was not of much use to the Shintu family, he might as well do them a favor. Gongsun Yu carefully held the letter in his hands as if he had received a treasure. He carefully read it, and his face revealed a complicated expression, sometimes puzzled, and sometimes enlightened expression. Seeing the impatient Gongsun Yu openly reading the letter in the main hall, the crowd present all clicked their tongues and sighed. This time, the Shinto family had grasped the lifeline of the Gongsun family. Amazing, amazing. There's actually such a forging method. I have never heard of or seen it before. As expected of a top blacksmith in the South Horizon region. After skimming through it, Gongsun Yu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration again and again. He was practically dancing with joy like an old urchin. To him, the value of this master's letter was astonishing. May I ask if Elder Gongsun's sincerity is enough? Shintu Zhan asked with a smile. When he saw Gongsun Yu's performance, he knew that the outcome was already decided. Enough, enough, of course it's enough. Xiao Yu, marry Shintu Miao now, immediately. Gongsun Yu couldn't wait to get his hands on the complete letter. Grandpa. Gongsun Xiaoya pouted her pink lips, her face full of reluctance. After seeing someone as outstanding as Yi Guqin, she looked down on the idiot Shintu Miao even more. Moreover, Gongsun Xiaoya had said before that she would marry anyone who could surpass her in smithing art. And Yi Guqin had undoubtedly stirred up Gongsun Xiaoya's maiden heart. If she were to marry Shintu Miao now, it would be even more disgusting than eating a fly. However, looking at Gongsun Yu's resolute attitude, Gongsun Xiaoya knew that she had no chance. Brother Yi. Gongsun Xiaoya cast a pitiful gaze at Yi Guqin. Since he was determined to take Xiao Wanru away, could he also get her along with him? Hearing Gongsun Xiaoya's coquettish words, even Yi Guqin felt a little uncomfortable. However, looking at Shintu Zhan's smug expression, Yi Guqin's expression didn't change at all. He turned to look at Gongsun Xianlong and said, I would like to show the letter to clan head Gongsun. I wonder if clan head Gongsun would do me the honor. As soon as Yi Guqin's words came out, everyone present revealed a strange expression. Could it be that Yi Guqin still hadn't given up? Sigh, Yi Guqin's pestering endlessly is a little tarnishing of his reputation as a sword master, Zhou Tong said with a sigh of regret. His words were agreed by the others. A dignified sword master was making jokes at someone else's wedding and even fooling around. If news of this were to spread, it would indeed be a disgrace. Perhaps he's not lying. After all, he's also the champion of the blacksmith convention, LV Qinghan speculated. Senior sister, you're wrong. Let's wait and see, Zhou Tong said with a faint smile. On the other side, Gongsun Xianlong was a little hesitant. In fact, he had a good impression of Yi Guqin. He even wanted to rope him in to join the Gongsun clan. However, now that Yi Guqin had taken out a pile of master's letters, it was indeed a little suspicious. Such precious letters were not cabbages that could be found everywhere. However, looking at Yi Guqin's calm expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. Furthermore, Gongsun Xianlong had guessed that Yi Guqin probably had the help of a blacksmith expert. Therefore, it wasn't impossible. Thinking of this, Gongsun Xianlong stood up and prepared to look at Yi Guqin's letters. When Shintuzhan saw this, he couldn't help but laugh. Brother Xianlong, have you lost your mind? You actually dared to listen to the nonsense of a junior. Such a master's letter is extremely precious. How could he possibly take it out? Gongsun Xianlong sighed and didn't say much. He would just treat it as if he were on good terms with Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin handed a letter to Gongsun Xianlong. Gongsun Xianlong casually flipped through it. His expression was calm at first, then slowly turned serious, and finally extremely surprised. What's going on? Seeing Gongsun Xianlong's constantly changing expression, some of the surrounding people were puzzled. Shintuzhan's heart skipped a beat as he stared at Gongsun Xianlong. Yi Guqin looked at Gongsun Xianlong indifferently. With his blacksmithing skills, there was no way he couldn't understand this letter. Xianlong, how is it? Is that kid lying to me? On the other side, Gongsun Yu was still holding on to half of the letter as if it was a treasure as he asked Gongsun Xianlong. This. To be honest, in my opinion, there's no order at all. I can't understand it at all. Gongsun Xianlong smiled bitterly. He really couldn't understand the meaning of the insights in the letter. Ha, Yi Guqin, how is it? Have you given up now? Shintuzhan heard this and quietly relaxed. Thinking of how nervous he was just now, he found it laughable. Senior sister, did you see it? I'm not wrong, right? Zhou Tong said confidently as he waved his folding fan. I didn't expect it to be so. LV Qinghan sighed slightly. Yi Guqin had indeed lost the sword sect's reputation by taking out a fake letter. Yi Guqin shook his head slightly. It seemed that he had overestimated Gongsun Xianlong's level. However, on second thought, with the old drunkard's level, ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand it. You can't understand it. Gongsun Yu's eyes revealed a trace of suspicion. He directly snatched the letter from Gongsun Xianlong's hand and casually glanced at it. Then, his old face completely froze. His pair of old eyes were wide open as he stared at the letter. The expression on his face became extremely interesting. Ha, old Master Gongsun, don't be calculative with a junior. Just send him away. Shintuzhan saw this and said with a smile. Don't bother me. Scram. Gongsun Yu suddenly roared like a lion from the east. His old face was extremely excited and red, as if he had discovered a new continent. Shintuzhan, who was scolded, was stunned and a little dumbfounded. What was going on? It wasn't just Shintuzhan. Everyone present, including Zhou Tong and LV Qinghan, was stunned. Why did old Master Gongsun suddenly seem like a different person? Chapter 475. Master, definitely a Grandmaster level blacksmith. Heavens, which Grandmaster left this handbook behind? Such forging techniques have refreshed my knowledge. Gongsun Yu was in a frenzy. In a short period of time, he had scanned through the entire handbook. He felt as if he had been enlightened, but he still wanted to continue. Compared to this handbook, the half-written handbook that Shintuzhan had given him was extremely crude and unbearable to look at. However, after hearing Gongsun Yu's words, all the guests present were dumbfounded, just like Shintuzhan. Yi Guqin had really taken out a Grandmaster-level handbook. Zhou Tong's face turned slightly stiff, and he felt a little embarrassed. LV Qinghan was the same. They were still discussing how Yi Guqin had taken out a fake handbook, and how it would damage the sword sect's reputation. However, from the looks of it, what he had taken out was indeed the real handbook. Not only that, from Gongsun Yu's attitude, the handbook's level was probably even higher than Shintuzhan's. Thinking of this, even a cold fairy like LV Qinghan blushed, feeling a little embarrassed. On the other side, Shintuzhan was still in a daze. After a long while, Shintuzhan said with a slight pause, Old man Gongsun, did you see wrongly? How could this kid have such a precious handbook? Are you doubting my level? Gong Sun Yu coldly glanced at Shintu Zhan. No, how could that be possible? It's just that, why don't I let you take a look at the entire handbook? This handbook is definitely 1 in a million. Shintu Zhan was really panicking this time, and directly handed the remaining half of the handbook to Gong Sun Yu. Gong Sun Yu casually took it and glanced at it. If he had not seen Yi Guqin's handbook, Gong Sun Yu might have been excited and gained many insights. However, now, after seeing the old drunkard's handbook, Gong Sun Yu only felt that Shintu Zhan's handbook was extremely superficial, and its level was only slightly higher than his. When he thought of how he had forced his beloved granddaughter to marry off for such a lousy handbook, Gong Sun Yu felt a surge of anger in his heart. He naturally could not blame himself, so he could only vent his anger on the Shintu family. In this old man's opinion, this bullshit is worse than toilet paper in the latrine. Gong Sun Yu said as he tore the handwritten letter into pieces. Shintu Zhan's face was extremely pale as he looked at the flying pieces of paper. He took a few steps back. The Shintu and Gong Sun family's greatest support had been torn apart by Gong Sun Yu with his own hands. Shintu Zhan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. For a moment, he was unable to stand steadily. Father! Shintu Miao's expression was extremely unsightly as well, and his entire body was trembling. How could he not know that the reason why Gong Sun Xiaoye married him was because of this letter? But now, the Shintu family's trump card was gone. Everything started with Yi Guqin. On the other hand, Yi Guqin remained indifferent from beginning to end. He wasn't surprised at all when he saw Gong Sun Yu tear up the letter. But Gong Sun Yu's gaze turned towards Yi Guqin. His originally stern old face was now smiling like a withered chrysanthemum. Junior, oh no, little friend Yi, I didn't expect that the dignified sword master would also be a forging genius. Now it seems that you are indeed a talented person, a dragon among men. This old man also admires you very much. Gong Sun Yu's words made many people roll their eyes. This old guy changed his face faster than flipping a book. I dare not accept elder's praise. Yi Guqin raised his brows slightly. Gong Sun Yu was really a clown. He had never seen such a thick-skinned elder. That, little friend, where did these letters come from? Gong Sun Yu laughed dryly. No comment. Yi Guqin said indifferently. He naturally couldn't reveal the old drunkard's location. Some people looked at Yi Guqin with admiration. Even divine-dwelling experts did not dare to speak to Gong Sun Yu in such a tone. Gong Sun Yu didn't mind. He coughed dryly and said, then I wonder if little friend Yi can lend these letters to this old man for a look? Elders seem to have said before that if you read my letters, where would your face be? Yi Guqin said casually. That. Gong Sun Yu's smile stiffened. This was simply slapping his own face. But fortunately, Gong Sun Yu's skin was thick enough and he didn't mind. He said, isn't that because you were bewitched by that bastard Shintu Zhan? You want to climb up the Gong Sun family with just this toilet paper? You're dreaming. Shintu Zhan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Gong Sun Xiaoye's eyes were bright as she said excitedly, Grandfather, then Xiaoye doesn't have to marry Shintu Miao, right? Of course, how can I let you marry such a savage? Granddaughter, what do you think of little friend Yi? He's a talented person, a dragon among men. It's not bad to be the son-in-law of the Gong Sun family. Gong Sun Yu smiled. Hooray! Gong Sun Xiaoye cried out. Then, her figure flashed, and she pounced on Yi Guqin's back like an octopus, hugging him tightly. That. Even Yi Guqin was a little stunned. This grandfather-granddaughter pair was too much of a child's play. Crack. Shintu Miao's face was ashen, and the veins all over his body bulged. They were still at the wedding banquet, and Gong Sun Xiaoye was even wearing a wedding dress. In the end, she pounced on Yi Guqin. Many people around looked at Yi Guqin and Gong Sun Xiaoye, and then looked at Shintu Miao. Why did it feel like there was a dazzling green light above Shintu Miao's head? Miss Gong Sun, please come down. Yi Guqin frowned slightly. Being hugged by a young girl in such an indecent position made Yiguchen feel very awkward. I've decided to marry you, Gongsun Xiaoye said with a smile. Her words were shocking. Shintu Zhan, Shintu Miao, and the others were so angry that their blood boiled. Was today the Shintu family's wedding banquet, or was it Yiguchen's wedding banquet? Sorry, I don't have such intentions at the moment. Come down first, Yiguchen said calmly. What a fool. Could it be that you already have someone in mind? It's all right. If it really doesn't work out, I'll lower myself to be your concubine. Gongsun Xiaoye's eyes darted around as she asked unwillingly. Yiguchen was really too outstanding. In martial arts and forging, he was a genius. In addition, he was handsome, and had created all kinds of legendary deeds. It was enough to make Gongsun Xiaoye a love-struck fool. Xiao Wanru's face paled when she heard that, and she smiled bitterly. The young girl that Shintu Miao had to treat with caution was now shamelessly marrying Yiguchen, and was even willing to be his concubine. Shintu Miao was so angry that his teeth were chattering. Bitch! Shintu Miao could not calm the anger in his chest. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice. Gongsun Yu's old eyes shone with a sharp light, and he released his aura. With a boom, Shintu Miao was sent flying. His red wedding robe was torn to shreds, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. He collapsed on the ground and fainted. Shintu Zhan's expression changed, and he hurried forward. His heart was bleeding. Today, I announce that the marriage alliance between the two families is cancelled. In the future, my Gongsun family and the Shintu family will have nothing to do with each other. Gongsun Yu drew a clear line between himself and the Shintu family. With that, everyone knew that the outcome was set. The Shintu family's dream of relying on the Gongsun family to rise to the top was shattered. Chapter 476. They looked at Shintu Miao, who had fainted on the ground. Then they looked at Shintu Zhan, whose eyes were bloodshot. Many guests sighed. Who would have thought that the high-spirited Shintu family, which was about to rise, would be reduced to such a miserable state because of Yiguchen? Shintu Zhan must be feeling extremely regretful. If he had not insisted on Yiguchen staying, if he had just let the Xiao family go, the outcome would not have been so bad. Perhaps the outcome wouldn't be so bad. Perhaps the marriage could still be established. If there was anything to blame, it could only be blamed on Shintu Zhan's stubbornness. Among the people present, the happiest were the Zhao family head and a few others. If the Shintu family had climbed up the Gongsun family's branch, then the other families would have been suppressed by the Shintu family. But now, the Shintu family had suffered a double loss. Not only did they not have a good relationship with the Gongsun family, but they had also fallen out with the Gongsun family. It could be seen that the Shintu family's reputation and influence would be greatly affected in the future. It could even plummet. Seeing this, Yiguchen lightly shook his head. If Shintu Zhan had allowed him to take Xiao Wanru away safely, then all of this might not have happened. That little friend, about the handbook. Gongsun Yu laughed dryly, rubbing his hands. He was obviously very eager. Now, Gongsun Yu had both fame and status. His only goal was to break through to become a 5-star blacksmith. I'll lend these books to you first. I believe it will be enough for you to understand. Yiguchen handed the basic handbook to Gongsun Yu. Gongsun Yu hurriedly received it, holding it carefully as if he had received a treasure. Thank you, little friend. If I can break through to become a 5-star blacksmith in the future, I will definitely not forget your kindness today. Gongsun Yu said solemnly. His words caused the expressions of the surrounding people to change. Zhou Tong's face turned serious. With Gongsun Yu's status, giving such a promise carried a lot of weight. Ha, little friend Yi, why don't we hold your marriage with Xiao Yu today? Gongsun Xianlong said with a laugh. As a son-in-law, Yiguchen was much better than Shintu Miao. In terms of talent and strength, Shinto Miao were far inferior. In terms of status and background, how could the Shinto family compare to the sword sect's talent? In addition to Yi Guqin's talent in forging, he also had that precious master's handwritten letter. He was truly the ideal candidate for a son-in-law. In addition, Gongsun Xiaoyu seemed to like him, so Gongsun Xianlong naturally wanted to pair them up. These words caused the bodies of the surrounding Shinto family members to tremble in humiliation. Shinto Zhan's face was blood red, but he could not use any forceful methods. This made Shinto Zhan so angry that he was about to suffer internal injuries. Clan head Gongsun, you must be joking. I have no such intentions, Yi Guqin said calmly. Gongsun Xiaoya pouted and reluctantly let go of Yi Guqin, but it seemed that she hadn't given up yet. At this moment, a faint voice rang out. The voice was slightly piercing. Brother Yi, you're actually thinking for the Gongsun family. Don't forget that he's still poisoned by the blood barbarian tribe's demonic blood poison. The person who spoke was naturally Zhou Tong. Now that Yi Guqin was already very difficult to deal with, he didn't want Yi Guqin to have too close a relationship with the Gongsun family, so he spoke up. Yi Guqin's eyes turned cold. Zhou Tong's repeated provocations had already made him extremely displeased. Even if Yi Guqin was indeed poisoned by the demonic blood poison, there was no need for him to point it out. Gongsun Xianlong raised his eyebrows. It seemed that this three imperial palaces genius had some friction with Yi Guqin. However, this was a grudge between the two factions, so Gongsun Xianlong tactfully kept his mouth shut. Alright, today's matter is over. Everyone has seen enough of the show. Let's disperse, Yi Guqin said calmly. He only needed to bring the Xiao family members out. Subsequently, Gongsun Yu and Gongsun Xianlong invited Yi Guqin to the Gongsun family for a small gathering, but were politely declined by Yi Guqin. Gongsun Xiaoye was even more unwilling to give up. It seemed like she was completely entangled with Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin pursued the way of the sword wholeheartedly, so he naturally wouldn't be distracted by love. He had no intention of getting married at all. After that, Yi Guqin, the Xiao family members, the Gongsun family, and many other guests left. Only the messy hall and the miserable Shinto family members were left behind. Yi Guqin, my Shinto family will never let you off. Shinto Zhan's eyes were blood red as he roared with incomparable resentment. What was originally the most festive and lively wedding day of the Shinto family had ended in such a ridiculous and dramatic manner, causing many to sigh. Clearly, this matter didn't take long to spread throughout northern Yang City. It was likely that the Shinto family's reputation would be greatly affected for a long period of time. They might even become the laughing stock of the entire Saint Origin Empire. This was the first time a super family had suffered such humiliation. However, what everyone paid more attention to was the mysterious forging genius. His true identity was actually the sword master. This similarly caused everyone to be shocked. Yi Guqin's original legendary deeds had been added with a thick stroke of ink and color. After all, it was extremely rare for a genius to cultivate both martial arts and forging. After leaving the Shinto family, Yi Guqin walked in front alone, while the Xiao family trio followed behind him. As for Madame Xiao, she was even more submissive. She lowered her head, not daring to raise it. Yi Guqin stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Xiao Lai. Brother Xiao, to prevent the Shinto family from dealing with you, I will let you join the Gongsun family in the future. Really? Thank you, little brother Yi. Hearing this, Xiao Lai's eyes were filled with gratitude as he cupped his fists. What he was most worried about was that the Shinto family would settle scores with them in the future. After all, the Shinto family couldn't do anything to Yi Guqin and the Gongsun family, but they could easily wipe out the Xiao family trio. This is the token of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. This item can be considered as a layer of protection. Yi Guqin took out a jade token of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest and handed it to Xiao Lai. Little brother Yi, we are not worthy of this. Xiao Lai lowered his head in shame. Thinking of their attitude towards Yi Guqin, Xiao Lai felt guilty. Xiao Wanru bit her lips. Even now, the bitterness and regret in her heart had not dissipated. As for the absent-minded Madame Xiao, she knelt down with a plop and said humbly, "Sword Master Yi, please spare this old woman's life. My mouth was cheap and I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai." It was an insult to Sword Master Yi. As Madame Xiao said this, she kowtowed. If it wasn't for her prejudice, if it wasn't for her harsh attitude, perhaps Yi Guqin's relationship with them would be good, and he might even have some sort of fate with Xiao Wanru. However, because of Madame Xiao's narrow-mindedness, all of this had turned into bubbles. Yi Guqin did not pity her, nor did he express anything. He turned around and was about to leave. "Lord Yi. I'm sorry." Xiao Wanru suppressed her sobs. Her eyes were red as she tried her best not to let her tears fall. "It's all right. Life is vast, and it is difficult to maintain one's original heart. Take care in the future." Yi Guqin sighed slowly as his figure gradually faded away. Hearing this, Xiao Wanru finally could not stop her tears from falling. She collapsed on the ground and cried heartbreakingly. Originally, there might have been a better ending between them. However, now, they were just passers-by. Xiao Wanru regretted her actions, but no matter how much regret she had, it could not change the facts. Chapter 477. After settling the matter with the Shinto family, Yi Guqin returned to the inn in the Sword Sex Forest of Pagodas. Although he had helped the Xiao family, he had offended the Shinto family. However, Yi Guqin did not mind. He could not fulfill his promise just because he was afraid of the Shinto family. Furthermore, the Shinto family was not enough to make him afraid. Next, it's time to settle the matter of the blood-dissolving demonic poison. After that, I will find an opportunity to infiltrate the barbarian race and head to the Five Elements Temple to obtain the sacred medicine. Yi Guqin made arrangements after some thought. He thought that he should quickly inquire about the ancient desolate forbidden zone. After obtaining the Five Elements sacred fruit, Yi Guqin would be able to remove the blood-dissolving demonic poison. However, Yi Guqin only knew a little about the ancient desolate forbidden zone from the Dragon Girl. He was not very clear about it. In the next few days, Yi Guqin stayed in the inn to recuperate. The matter of Yi Guqin causing trouble with the Shinto family spread like wildfire in northern Liang City. There were even times when Gongsun Xiaoye would come to see Yi Guqin. This made many disciples in the inner courtyard of the Sword Sex Forest of Pagodas admire him. He could kidnap someone's wife just by making a trip to the Shinto family. Yi Guqin was also helpless about this, so he simply ignored it. Not long after, Feng Manlu returned, accompanied by a huge matter that shocked the entire northern Liang city. The blood barbarian tribe was completely wiped out. Feng Manlu's trip was just as he had said, a casual stroll. However, the place he visited was the blood barbarian tribe's base, the Heaven Blood Demonic Castle. News spread that the Heaven Blood Demonic Castle was lifeless, and no one in the tribe survived. And all of this was done by Feng Manlu alone. The former Sword King had been silent for 10 years. At the exchange, he had severed Xian Tai's arm with a stunning sword. Now, he had barged into the blood barbarian tribe's base alone and wiped out the entire tribe. This news was like a clap of thunder, causing the 7 major factions and the barbarians to tremble. Many people guessed that Feng Manlu's actions were to avenge Yi Guqin. Although Feng Manlu was benevolent, the fact that the blood barbarians had sent experts to attack Yi Guqin was tantamount to crossing his bottom line. In addition, the blood barbarian tribe was known for their extreme brutality. Even among the barbarian tribe, they were considered extreme. Feng Manlu had no reason to blame himself for killing them. This was because every blood barbarian was stained with countless souls and blood. This was a move to eliminate evil. When Yi Guqin heard this news, he couldn't help but sigh. He rarely admired anyone. However, Feng Manlu was indeed a sword cultivator worthy of respect. He possessed many excellent qualities of a swordsman. The sword sect pagoda had been in seclusion for 10 years. He was soft-hearted and rarely used lethal moves, unless the enemy deserved to die. This was a benevolent heart. Facing a divine dwelling expert, Xian Tai, he was neither servile nor overbearing. His sword was stunning, and this was his pride. He had charged into the blood barbarian tribe's territory alone without any fear. This was boldness. Tenacity, benevolence, pride, and boldness. With the four of them combined into one, the title of Feng Manlu's Sword King was not just for show. At the same time, the news that Yi Guqin had killed the 10 saints of the blood barbarian tribe had also spread to the barbarian tribe. This set off a great storm among the barbarian tribe. Many barbarian saints and saintesses didn't expect that the sword sect master, who was rumored to be dead, was still alive and had become so powerful that he could kill 10 saints in a row. However, there were also many barbarian saints who despised Yi Guqin. They thought that he had been poisoned by the blood-dissolving demon poison and would die soon. Of course, there were also barbarian saints who said that if they met Yi Guqin, they would definitely kill him. For example, the Thunder Tribe Saint Lei Jiuming, the Gold Tribe Triple Crown King, the Gold Sun Saint, the New Saintess of the Water Tribe, Koeshui Yinji, and so on. Previously, Yi Guqin had killed the 10 saints in a row. Later, Feng Manlu had single-handedly wiped out the blood barbarian tribe. This act was like a fuse that completely ignited the war between the 7 forces and the barbarian tribe. After that, the war was no longer limited to the heavens prides of the 7 forces and the barbarian tribe's saints and saintesses. Even the life and death threshold, heaven and earth spiritual bridge, and divine dwelling experts began to take action. The entire great desolate mansion suddenly became a cruel Azura battlefield. Every day, there would be news of the deaths of barbarian tribe experts, as well as the deaths of higher-ups of the 7 forces. This fierce battle lasted for more than a month. During this month, Yi Guqin also took action and killed some barbarian saints. The name Sword Sect Master spread even more widely among the barbarian tribe. Almost all the barbarian saints and saintesses knew of Yi Guqin's name. Of course, in addition to Yi Guqin, the young war emperor, Xian Hao, Lv Qinghan, and the others were also very famous among the barbarian tribe. They had killed many saints. In addition, there were some who were not famous but had killed many saints in the barbarian tribe. For example, there was a rumor that a black-clothed young man had killed 3 barbarian saints with a single move. He had a pair of pitch-black eagle wings on his back. There were also people who saw a ragged young man holding a rusty ancient sword and killing saints as if they were dogs. The battle lasted for about a month and a half. The 7 forces and the barbarian tribe chose to temporarily stop fighting. No one knew the reason. A few days later, Yi Guqin received a notice from Elder Qing He that the people of the 7 forces were to gather at the arena. Not long after, the higher-ups of the 7 forces, including the elders and disciples, gathered at the arena. At this moment, the people of the 7 forces were sizing each other up. After the baptism of war, many of the geniuses of the various forces had improved, but many of them had also died. Even the inner courtyard of Sword Sect Pagoda Forest had lost a few people. This was inevitable. Even if Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's opponents were the most gentle water tribe and wood tribe, it was impossible for them to come out unscathed. Moreover, under the leadership of Kue Shui Yinji, the water tribe was no longer as merciful as before. However, the losses of the other forces were more than that of Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. At this moment, an elder walked up to the arena and said loudly, "Everyone, the battle between the 7 great forces of power and the Berserker tribe is incredibly intense. Both sides have suffered great losses. That's why the higher-ups of the Berserker tribe came forward and suggested to the higher-ups of the 7 great forces that instead of fighting to the death, we should choose a wiser method. And this way is in the ancient desolation forbidden zone." What? Yi Guqin, who was below the arena, was surprised when he heard that. He was about to make a trip to the ancient desolation forbidden zone, but now it seemed that he did not have to go alone. The Ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone is an ancient battlefield located at the junction of the Great Desolation Mansion and the Five Elements land. There are many opportunities and dangers in it. The entire battlefield is shrouded by a peerless ominous formation. If one's cultivation base is above the life and death realm, his strength will be suppressed to the life and death realm. Even the life and death realm experts will be suppressed to a certain extent. However, in the Ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone, it is said that there is an Ancient Desolation arena that is used for duels. If one wins a duel in the Ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone, he will receive some mysterious gifts, such as some sacred elixirs and even the will of life and death. When they heard about the will of life and death, the eyes of many geniuses in the entire arena, especially the geniuses with 9 changes of godly soul, were burning with passion and their breathing quickened. As everyone knew, in order to break through to the life and death realm, one needed to comprehend the line between life and death. However, the line between life and death was too dangerous. If one could not overcome it, one would die directly, let alone break through. The will of life and death was an extremely unique opportunity. If one succeeded in refining it, one would be able to comprehend the line between life and death. In other words, one could comprehend the will of life and death and break through the life and death realm without having to experience a life or death crisis. It could be said that the will of life and death was an absolutely priceless treasure for geniuses with 9 changes of godly soul. Chapter 478. As the old man spoke, some of the geniuses with 9 transformation divine soul realm, such as Xian Hao, the young war emperor, and LV Qinghan, focused their gazes and their breathing quickened. These geniuses had been stuck at the peak of the divine soul realm for a long time. The reason why they participated in the battle with the barbarian tribes so diligently was to find an opportunity to break through the life and death threshold. At this moment, the opportunity was right in front of them. Not only them, but some of the geniuses present were also eager to give it a try. "Senior, how will the battle with the barbarian tribe proceed?" a genius asked. The old man said, "It's very simple. In the Ancient Desolate Forbidden Zone, both sides can only send divine soul realm geniuses to fight. They will enter the Ancient Desolate Forbidden Zone and find the arena to fight. Finally, the geniuses from both sides will be judged. Whichever side can stand on the arena will be the final winner. If that's the case, then this battle won't be too stressful for us," some geniuses said with a smile. If that was the case, they really didn't put it in their eyes. In their eyes, the geniuses of the 7 forces were much stronger than the barbarian tribe's saint sons. Seeing this, the old man frowned slightly and said, "We can't underestimate our opponents in this battle. There are many wild beasts in the Ancient Desolate Forbidden Zone. Just entering the arena is not an easy task. Moreover, the legendary 4-crown king of the barbarian tribe will also appear in this battle." When the old man said this, the geniuses who were chatting with each other and looking relaxed all froze. They were speechless for a moment. If one were to ask who was the most powerful saint son in the barbarian tribe, it would be the invincible 4-crown king. "I heard that the 4-crown king of the barbarian tribe had fought with a life and death threshold expert before," some geniuses whispered. If that was the case, then the 4-crown king was invincible since they couldn't send life and death threshold experts in this battle. Many geniuses thought. However, at the same time, the gazes of the majority of the people in the entire fighting arena were all directed at Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin looked at the gazes and raised his eyebrows slightly. He wasn't surprised. After all, everyone already knew that he had killed the life and death threshold. "Hee, what's there to fear, 4-crown king? You've merely exchanged blows with the life and death chamber. Our 7 major powers have a sword sect existence that can truly slay the life and death chamber." Zhou Tong took a step forward and said with a faint smile. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows slightly. This Zhou Tong seemed to be praising him, but he was actually flattering him to death. Wasn't this telling everyone that if the quadruple crown king were to appear at that time, then the sword sect would have to deal with him? As for the quadruple crown king, not many people knew his true strength. Doing so would undoubtedly put Yiguchen in great danger. This Zhou Tong really spared no effort in trapping him. However, his words did have a response. Many sky prides heaved a sigh of relief. Although the quadruple crown king was powerful, Yiguchen gave them a sense of security. Even the old man faintly smiled as he nodded towards Yiguchen. That's right. The quadruple crown king is indeed powerful, but the sword sect is no weakling either. Yiguchen, I hope that you will be able to contribute greatly to the 7 major powers in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. The light in Yiguchen's eyes dimmed as he faintly nodded without saying anything. Who knew what would happen in the future? Soon after, the old man spoke again. If we win this duel, the barbarian race will withdraw from the great desolate mansion and return to the 5 elements land. They will also promise not to attack our empire for 10 years. If the barbarian race wins, the entire great desolate mansion will belong to them. If the barbarian race obtains the great desolate mansion, there will be endless trouble in the future. After the old man analyzed the pros and cons, the gazes of the sky prides turned solemn. This duel was indeed very important. The old man then went on to explain some more details. Yiguchen's brows were furrowed the entire time. The trip to the ancient desolate forbidden zone was much more dangerous than he had imagined. The danger did not only come from the barbarian race, but also from the 7 major powers. He believed that Zhou Tong and the rest would definitely not let go of such a good place like the ancient desolate forbidden zone. It would be easy for a few people to die in there. However, Yiguchen was not afraid. After experiencing so many hardships, his heart was already firm and unwavering. After the battle in the arena ended, the 7 major powers returned to their respective encampments to prepare for the trip to the ancient desolate forbidden zone. The time was set to be 5 days later. The sky prides of the 7 major powers made use of the time to adjust themselves to their best condition. After a day, the dragon lady came to Yiguchen. I want to enter the ancient desolate forbidden zone with you. The dragon lady went straight to the point. Yiguchen faintly nodded. He naturally knew that the dragon lady wanted to use this opportunity to contact the water tribe and return to her tribe. At the same time, I hope that you can help me with something. The dragon lady gritted her teeth and said hesitantly. What's the matter? Yiguchen asked. Help me deal with Kue Shui Yinji. Not only is she powerful, but she has also roped in many saints and saintesses of my tribe. It's not easy for me to deal with her alone. The dragon lady's watery eyes flashed. Although her relationship with Yiguchen was not bad, it was not particularly good. Hence, the dragon lady was not confident in asking for such a favor. Sure. Yiguchen faintly nodded without hesitation. That's all. Is there nothing else to ask? The dragon lady was slightly surprised. Yiguchen's answer was too straightforward. Aren't we friends? Yiguchen chuckled, not minding it at all. The dragon lady stared deeply at Yiguchen and suddenly smiled. I finally understand why you are so popular with women. This. Yiguchen paused. Really? He only thought that if he could infiltrate the barbarian tribe in the future, he could get the dragon lady's help. Don't worry. If you have any problems in the future, you can look for me. At the same time, I promise that if I regain my position, the water tribe will not participate in the war. The dragon lady said solemnly. Yiguchen nodded. In the next few days, Yiguchen was adjusting his breath and suppressing the blood-dissolving demonic poison in his body. The news of the battle between the barbarian tribe and the 7 superpowers in the ancient desolation forbidden zone had spread throughout the Great Desolation Mansion. In a certain place in the Great Desolation Mansion, a black-robed young man stood straight like a spear. He looked into the distance and was deep in thought. Ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone. I wonder if there are any healing panaceas in there. The black-robed young man pondered and sighed. I didn't expect that Yiguchen would still be alive. It's indeed unexpected. He even killed a life and death chamber expert. However, I still have to see it with my own eyes. After the black-robed young man muttered to himself, Zhenqi surged behind his back and a pair of black eagle wings spread out. He flapped his wings and flew into the sky. This young man was Su Moyan. At the same time, in another city of the Great Desolation Mansion, a massacre was going on. A golden-robed young man was strolling around the city in boredom. The ground was littered with corpses. This young man was a saint of the Jin tribe. How boring. This city has been massacred. It's about time to head to the ancient desolation forbidden zone. The golden-robed young man smiled. At this moment, he suddenly saw a figure squatting on the side of the street in front of him. He did not know what the figure was doing. Oh, there's a fish that escaped the net. The golden-robed young man raised his eyebrows and approached the figure. He found that it was a sloppy young man with unkempt hair and a dirty face. He frowned when he saw the unpleasant smell coming from his body. So it's a beggar. The golden-robed young man shook his head. The young man kept mumbling as if he was counting something, 16, 17, 18, 19, what's this beggar doing? The golden-robed young man approached again and took a closer look. However, his eyes froze in an instant. The thing that the young man was counting was none other than the Holy Sun badges one after another. How is this possible? The golden-robed young man was shocked. At this moment, the sloppy young man suddenly turned around. His body was extremely dirty, but his eyes were as sharp as the cold stars in the sky. Whoosh! A rusty ancient saber appeared in the sloppy young man's hand. He swung the saber as fast as lightning. Puchi! Blood spurted out and the golden-robed young man's head was separated from his body. The sloppy young man slowly walked forward and searched the golden-robed young man's body. He found a saint token. 20. The sloppy young man mumbled, but he did not feel happy at all. I've only comprehended 70% of the peerless saber. It's not enough. I need to find someone to verify my saber Dao. Where should I go? Yes, the ancient desolation forbidden zone. The sloppy young man mumbled as he looked in the direction of the ancient desolation forbidden zone. This sloppy young man was the saber maniac, Gu Zun. Chapter 479. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. 5 days later, the 7 major forces of northern Yang City were preparing to set off for the ancient desolate forbidden zone. The group from the Sword Sect Tower was also preparing to leave the city under Feng Manla's lead. Beside Yiguchen, the dragon lady wore a hood and followed beside him. Because Yiguchen had an extraordinary status in the Sword Sect Tower, not many people asked too much. However, the dragon girl's stunning beauty still attracted the attention of many inner court disciples. At the back of the crowd, Bai Zichen's eyes flickered as a cold smile appeared on his face. Yiguchen, this is... Yan Wushuang pretended to ask casually. Just a servant girl, Yiguchen said casually. Servant girl? Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, and the others were puzzled. Yiguchen wasn't fond of women and wasn't greedy for pleasure. Since when did he have such a beautiful servant girl? However, they didn't care too much and looked at Yan Wushuang with playful gazes. Yan Wushuang seemed to care about the beautiful servant girl beside Yiguchen. What are you looking at me for? Yan Wushuang's beautiful eyes dodged slightly as she shouted. Why do I feel that senior sister Yan has become more and more feminine after the exchange? Yi Xia shook his head. I think so too. Chu Qingqi nodded in agreement. Are you guys itching for a beating? Yan Wushuang raised her hand as she bit her red lips and said with a faint blush on her face. Shuang, I didn't think that while I was unconscious, you would be conquered by junior brother Yi so quickly. At the side, Ji Ling, who had recovered from her heavy injuries, pouted her red lips. Her tone carried a trace of jealousy as she spoke with hidden bitterness. Even you. Yan Wushuang gritted her teeth and felt extremely embarrassed. However, the harmonious atmosphere between the inner court disciples was much better than before. Of course, Yi Gu-chen had set a good example for them. Yi Gu-chen smiled faintly as he watched the inner court disciples joke around. This kind of relationship between senior and junior brothers and sisters seemed to be quite comfortable. The only thing that was a little irksome was, Yi Gu-chen narrowed his eyes and looked at Bai Zichen at the back. Bai Zichen averted his gaze and glanced to the side. Bai Zichen, I hope you know what's good for you. If you try anything funny in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, don't blame me for disregarding our relationship as fellow disciples. Yi Gu-chen's eyes were cold. The 7 great forces left northern Yang City under the lead of their respective divine dwelling experts. After a few days, they were finally close to the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Yi Gu-chen looked into the distance. He saw that the horizon in the distance had changed from a sky of yellow sand to a pitch-black land. Within it, there were mountain ranges and ancient forests. The pitch-black mountain ridge was like the skeleton of a giant beast, bringing with it a savage aura. Is that the forbidden zone of the ancient desolate? Yi Gu-chen thought to himself. He had been to many dangerous places, such as the Endless Plains, the Bottomless Demon Abyss, the Void Sword Realm, and so on. He was also a little interested in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. In addition to the 5 elements sacred fruit, Yi Gu-chen was also a little curious about the life and death will. In addition, according to the Dragon Girl, there were many altars in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. In different altars, one could even obtain some 5 elements sacred items, which would be of great help to Yi Gu-chen's 5-colored golden core. Maybe I can awaken the ancestral totem in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, Yi Gu-chen thought to himself. Not long after, everyone was close to the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Feeling the savage and fierce atmosphere, some of the originally confident geniuses could not help but change their expressions slightly, and their hearts beat like a drum. Is the barbarian tribe not here yet? A genius asked. The barbarian tribe is different from us. We enter from the east, while the barbarian tribe enters from the west. Anyway, we will meet in the end and gather in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, someone explained. In that case, everyone, enter. However, I have to warn you in advance that there are many dangers in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Not only will you fight with the barbarian tribe, you will also encounter some wild beasts. Those wild beasts are more ferocious than ordinary demonic beasts, an old senior warned. The geniuses present felt their hearts heavy. Let's go, Yi Gu-chen said calmly. Shortly after, the group from the Sword Sect's Tower Forest walked in. The geniuses from the other forces also entered. 100 miles away, in another direction of the ancient desolate forbidden zone, there was a group of people standing. Among them, there were 4 black-clothed masked men. Their eyes were filled with deep-seated hatred. And standing in front of them was a figure. It was Shintu Zhan. In the ancient desolate forbidden zone, there is a peerless array. Even if a spiritual bridge of heaven and earth expert enters, it will be useless. This time, I will have to trouble you 4 elders. For the revenge of our Shintu family, you must kill Yi Gu-chen. Shintu Zhan gritted his teeth, and his eyes were filled with hatred. That's natural. Yi Gu-chen has ruined my Shintu family's plans. The few of us will definitely kill him. The 4 masked men were the elders of the Shintu family. At this moment, they were determined to kill Yi Gu-chen. Although the array in the ancient desolate forbidden zone could suppress the strength of the life and death chamber, it would not completely suppress it. With the strength of 4 life and death chamber experts, how could they not kill a divine soul realm expert? Okay, then let's set off. Be careful to find the right opportunity to strike. Do not let others know, or it will be the end of our Shintu family. Shintu Zhan warned. Back when Yi Gu-chen was ambushed by the Blood Barbarian tribe experts, Feng Manlu had wiped out the entire Blood Barbarian tribe. If the news of the Shintu family taking action was leaked, then the Shintu family would have to bear the wrath of the Sword King. Furthermore, they were entering the ancient desolate forbidden zone to gamble with the barbarian tribe. If the Shinto family took action to kill Yiguchin, it would undoubtedly be a great offense. If the news were to spread, not only the Sword Sect and Talon Forest, even the 7 major factions and the entire dynasty would not tolerate the existence of the Shinto family. In order to vent his anger, Shinto Zhan had gambled the entire Shinto family. Seeing the 4 masked elders leave, Shinto Zhan's expression was as ferocious as a demon. Yiguchin, this is the price you have to pay for provoking my Shinto family. This time, even if you don't die, you will die. At the same time, in another direction, Guzun, who was dressed in rags and emitting a sour smell, slowly walked into the ancient desolate forbidden zone with the 7 kills ancient saber in his hand. Who can achieve my peerless saber strike? Xian Hao, the young war emperor, the barbarian tribes Lei Jilyo, the Golden Sun Saint, the 4 Crown King, or, that sword sect? When the sword sect was mentioned, Guzun's star-like eyes flashed with a cold light. He had naturally received news of Yiguchin, including the news of him becoming the successor of Feng Manlu. Guzun knew that he would fight with Yiguchin at the peak of the Forbidden Zone in the future. However, Guzun did not care. He only cared about who could achieve his peerless saber strike. At the same time, on the other side, Su Moyan had also entered the ancient desolate Forbidden Zone. On one hand, he wanted to find the sacred herb, and on the other hand, he wanted to confirm Yiguchin's cultivation level. And on the west side of the ancient desolate Forbidden Zone, many saints and saintesses from the barbarian tribe camp were ready. Chapter 480. The barbarian race camp had many saints and saintesses, as well as the totem warriors. They all exuded a fierce and savage aura. The gold, wood, water, fire, earth and other 5 elements barbarian races were all present. In addition to the 5 elements barbarian race, there were also the Wind Clan, the Thunder Clan and other large clans. These large barbarian race tribes all had divine dwelling experts, and their strength was in no way weaker than the 7 great forces. In addition, there were some second-tier tribes such as the Bone Barbarian race, the Soul Barbarian race, and the Beast Barbarian race. They had heaven and earth spirit bridge experts, and their strength was roughly equivalent to the super families. As for the Blood Barbarian race, it was originally one of them, but it was destroyed by Feng Manlu alone. At this moment, many barbarian race tribes were gathered together. Many saints and saintesses exuded a murderous aura. It was obvious that they were going to launch the most ruthless slaughter in the ancient desolate Forbidden Zone. Finally, we can really fight with the bastards of the 7 great forces. A heaven pride clad in golden armor and holding a golden spear laughed from the Gold Clan camp. He was a strong saint of the Gold Clan, named Jin Zhanglie. I think this battle will be very boring. At the back, a handsome man in a golden robe casually said in a lazy tone. TSK, with your strength, Golden Sun Saint Sun, you can say that. But don't forget that this time, the 7 major forces have produced a sword master who can kill a life and death threshold expert. On the other side, in the camp of the water race, a woman with a green snake tattoo on her face said with a smile. Her appearance was coquettish, and there was a kind of charm to her. The green snake tattoo not only didn't destroy her charm, but also added a bit of wild temptation to her. She was the new saintess of the Water Clan, Kue Shue Inji. The reason she said that was to target Yiguchin. After all, it was Kue Shue Inji who secretly arranged for the Blood Barbarian race saintess to kill the dragon girl. In the end, because of Yiguchin, they didn't succeed and left a hidden danger. Therefore, Kue Shue Inji naturally hated Yiguchin to the core. So what if he killed the life and death threshold? He better pray that he doesn't meet me in the Forbidden Zone of the desolate ancient Forbidden Zone. A blue-haired figure from the Thunder Clan camp snorted coldly. He was the peerless saint of the Thunder Clan, Lei Jilyo. He possessed the bloodline of the Thunder God and had dual mutated thunders. His strength was definitely not weaker than the Triple Crown King. Behind him stood a young man who looked very similar to him. He was his younger brother, Lei Jiuming, who was also quite powerful. Lei Jilyo, anyone can boast. How about we compete and see who will be able to kill the sword sect in the end? A handsome male walked out from the Fire Clan. His hair was fiery red, but his eyes were green. He looked extremely strange. His tone was indifferent, as if killing Yiguchen was as easy as lifting a finger. Yan Xuanji, let's wait and see, Lei Jiuyo said coldly. Yan Xuanji smiled. As the double crown king of the fire tribe, his strength was also second to none. That four-crown king still hasn't arrived? A man from the Wind clan with an impressive temperament asked. He was the Wind clan's triple crown king, and his name was Feng Xiaotian. You guys go in first. For Crown King won't go with you, but he will enter, said a barbarian race expert. Many saints and saintesses entered the desolate ancient forbidden area. The 7 major forces and the barbarian race saints entered from the east and west respectively. Although they hadn't met yet, a murderous aura had already shrouded the entire desolate ancient forbidden area. The desolate ancient forbidden area, the ancient wilderness. It was rumored that this place was an ancient battlefield, and the ground was shrouded by a peerless array. Even if a divine dwelling expert entered, their strength would be suppressed to the life and death chamber. Even the life and death chamber experts wouldn't be able to display their full strength, and they would only be slightly stronger than a divine spirit expert. It was also because of this that very few experts came to this place to seek opportunities because they might die if they weren't careful. It was too disadvantageous for experts like them. If a divine spirit expert entered, they would also be in great danger. There were many desolate beasts running amok, and they were stronger than demonic beasts of the same level. In addition, there were various dangerous places. Of course, there were also many opportunities. In the desolate ancient forbidden area, there were many altars, most of which had 5 elements divine objects, but there would also be extremely powerful desolate beasts guarding them. In addition, there was also the desolate ancient battle arena. In the east of the desolate ancient forbidden area, Yiguchen and the others also entered. Feeling the wild and primitive land, Yiguchen's expression grew solemn. There was indeed a suppressive array aura here, but it didn't have much of an effect on a divine spirit expert like him. Let's split up here, Yiguchen suddenly said. You're not going with us? Yan Wushuang, Chu Qingqi, and the others were all surprised. In fact, my opponents are not only the barbarian race. It's not convenient for me to follow a large group. Yiguchen smiled casually, sweeping his gaze across the other forces. Zhou Tong, Black and White Impermanence, Ren Tingting, Empress Yuan Shi, Demonic Blade Ling Ju and the others were all looking at Yiguchen. I don't believe that they would attack someone from the same side in such a big matter, Yan Wushuang said. It's hard to know what's in a person's heart. Yiguchen had already seen through human nature. In that case, leave a communication jade slip so that we can contact each other, Chu Qingqi said. After leaving the jade slip, Yiguchen left with the dragon girl. At the same time, Bai Zichen, who was at the back of the Sword Sex Pagoda forest, also quietly followed behind Yiguchen. On the other side, Yiguchen and the dragon girl left to act in the desolate ancient forbidden area. Shall we deal with Kue Shui Yinji first? Yiguchen asked. There's no hurry. I haven't sensed her yet. She should still be some distance away. Let's go find the altars first. There are many altars in the desolate ancient forbidden area, all of which have 5 elements divine objects, the dragon girl said. Yiguchen nodded slightly. Not long after, they found an altar in a kernel. Around the altar, there was a river with a thick water elemental aura. And on the altar, there was a divine object that looked like a heart. It was rippling with water as it emitted a watery luster. It's a water elemental divine object, the heart of the sea. The dragon girl's breathing quickened. Yiguchen looked over. The heart of the sea was probably a divine object on the same level as the azurewood heart. However, in the river outside the altar, there seemed to be a shadow flashing under the water. Be careful, said Yiguchen. The dragon girl nodded as the two slowly approached. At that moment, a gigantic anaconda in the river suddenly raised its head. Its scales were like cold jade as they shimmered with a cold light. "Be careful, it's a desolate beast." The dragon girl's expression changed slightly. Yiguchen also sensed it. Although the anaconda was only a rank 4 Fae, comparable to the divine soul realm, its aura was much stronger than ordinary rank 4 Fae. Hiss! The anaconda was a desolate beast that guarded the altar. Its snake eyes were sharp as it charged straight at Yiguchen and the dragon girl. Yiguchen drew his Xianming heavy sword as his divine power surged as he slashed at the anaconda. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.